Star Hunter. Written by Savage Tempest. Chapter 1. There were 1,000 sounds Devin didn't want to hear on his trusty freighter. Air hissing out of the hull, the damn beeping of his alarm clock. Screaming klaxons, however, signaling a hostile weapons lock, was absolutely the worst sound he wanted to hear. Hell, Devin muttered as he bolted out of bed. Adrenaline and fear cleared away any sleep from his brain as Devin dashed out of his cabin. He made it to the cockpit in seconds. In times of crisis like this, he never complained about having a compact ship. There were no windows or ports on the Blue Jay, so Devin relied on the scanners to tell him what was gunning for him. Mercs, probably. It wasn't. What's a Brahma battlecruiser chasing me for? He wasn't carrying any illegal contraband, at the moment, and he did have business in the Omega Prime system, not even a goddamn courtesy call. Then again, Brahmins don't need a reason to attack traitors. They absolutely hate anyone who wasn't as zealous and drugged up as them. The klaxon screamed as Devin frantically tried to coax more speed from the Blue Jay's fusion drive engines. He had poured his meager life savings into this old freighter, stubbornly believing he could keep her space-worthy through odd jobs and prayers. But now pursued by a Brahma battlecruiser, her age showed through. Come on, Blue, don't let me down. Somewhere in the back of Devin's mind, behind the panic, he knew that talking to his ship might put him in the crazy zone. Didn't matter. He was desperate and would gladly get down on his hands and knees and pray to any non-existent god if he thought it could help him walk away from this mess. The Blue Jay shuddered as the Brahmin battlecruiser's first salvo slammed into her hull. Devin grimaced at the jolt, fighting to keep control. His piloting skills were being tested to their limits. Devin's fingers raced across the nav console, his ship rattling under plasma blasts. The Blue Jay, his reliable escape from a universe too crowded for comfort, now felt like a fragile shell against the might of the Brahmin battlecruiser. Each blast that rocked his ship was a cruel reminder of his vulnerability. Maybe his brother was right. Memories of Nolan's scornful words resurfaced, stinging as sharply as they had over a decade ago. "You're a loser, Devin," his brother's voice echoed in his mind. The same label their father bore, a label Devin had fought to shed all his life only to find himself cornered in the vastness of space, hunted like a common criminal. Not hunted, played with. These Brahma heads could end him any time they want. Which was strange. Devin was always under the impression that Brahmins never veered from their script. Devin shoved the throttle forward as far as he could and banked the Blue Jay, leaving his stomach behind where the battlecruiser's last plasma blast was. His ship groaned in protest as he executed a series of sharp evasive maneuvers. The controls felt clumsy under his hands, a stark contrast to the seamless response of an AI-assisted vessel. Devin cursed himself for skimping on upgrades, but upgrades cost money as do weapons. The Blue Jay's weapons, laughable at best, spat out feeble responses to the cruiser's overpowering firepower. Sparks flew from the weapons station as the Blue Jay's portside shuddered underneath another hit. Devin could have sworn that he felt the heat through the hull. Devin's grip tightened on the helm controls, his knuckles whitening. "Come on, baby. You can do it." Blue Jay couldn't. Another blast rocked the freighter. Devin wished he could shut the damn alarms off, but they were the least of his worries. Was that smoke he was smelling? An explosion from the rear and the cockpit door slamming shut told Devin that at least one of the battlecruiser's plasma rounds had pierced the hull. Devin watched helplessly as his shields flickered and failed. He was out of tricks, out of options. The battlecruiser had him dead in space. In desperation, he angled toward Omega-1, Brahma's mining colony. At least he could try to set the Blue Jay down somewhat intact on the planet's surface. Not that crash-landing a freighter built decades before he was born was a preferable option, but it beat being blown to dust in the cold vacuum of space. If he was lucky, real lucky, maybe he could land on Omega-1 in one piece. That way the Brahma heads could scoop him out of the ship and execute him, all civil-like. The Blue Jay groaned as he hit Omega-1's atmosphere. Devin fought with the controls, wrestling just to keep her steady as the Blue Jay screamed toward the ground. Pretty pointless, but he tried anyway. "Hold together for just a few more minutes, baby." The Blue Jay didn't, and the world tore apart around him. Chapter 2. Pain. Everywhere, meaning by some miracle, Devin was still alive, but for how long? He was on his back. He needed to get up, needed to open his eyes. Didn't want to, though. He didn't want to see the state his body was in or what was left of Blue Jay. While his mind was gradually registering what would most likely be a significant amount of agony, Devin forced his eyes open and gasped, not because of what he saw, but how he felt. It actually hurt to breathe. That and the jolts of pain on his right side probably meant a couple of ribs were broken. Sunlight stabbed at his eyes. Devin blinked to clear his vision. He needed to get up and see how bad the damage was. Gritting his teeth, Devin forced himself to sit up. Each movement, a bitter reminder of the throbbing ache in his body. Devin gingerly explored his torso, each touch igniting sharp stabs of pain that sliced through his growing awareness. Cracked ribs for sure, but nothing felt broken. Small favor there. His clothes were torn and filthy, but it's not like he landed on this planet for a date. Devin's eyes gradually adjusted to Omega-1's harsh sunlight. He scanned the wreckage surrounding him. Crap. All thoughts of his health and the cargo temporarily gone. Devin's heart sank. No. The Blue Jay was now little more than a mangled carcass of metal strewn across the rocky terrain. The only haven he'd known for years, reduced to scrap in an instant. His once proud ship lay scattered around him like the broken dreams of a star hunter. Devin shook his head, ignoring the additional aches. There would be time for a self-pity party later, if he got off his butt and got moving. Devin ran a calloused hand over his face, feeling dried blood crackling in his stubble. Apparently he also had a gash on his forehead, clotting at least. Devin glanced around what used to be the Blue Jay's cockpit and spotted his discarded flight helmet nearby, the visor shattered. Lucky he hadn't been wearing that on impact. Devin tested his limbs. Arms and legs moved, if painfully. He could walk. That was something at least. Grabbing a protruding piece of wreckage, Devin hauled himself to his feet with a groan. Felt like he just got knifed in the ribs. Still, he needed to put as much distance between the Blue Jay and him before the Brahma heads came crawling. He still wasn't sure why they shot him down. He was doing a sanctioned supply run, unless Amura Corp lied about what was inside the cargo, which he wouldn't put past them. Devin took in the mess again. The Blue Jay had carved a deep gouge into the rocky ground where she had crashed, creating a crater at least a kilometer deep. Devin's eyes followed the trail of debris littering the area until they came to rest on a particularly large piece of shattered hull beside him. A pang of grief went through him at the sight. He laid a hand on the metal, then pulled back instantly. Damn thing was still hot. You did good, old girl. Nothing wrong with talking to your ship, especially when you're saying goodbye. A coughing fit seized him, not surprising since black smoke still lingered in the air. But the Brahmins might be here soon to finish the job. He had to move. One last scan of the Blue Jay confirmed that there was nothing salvageable to take. With a heavy sigh, Devin shuffled down the smoldering furrow left by the wreckage, scowling against his pain. And his new limp. He hoped the limp was only temporary. Well, at least it's not broken. That didn't make the walk to the edge of the crater any easier. A few minutes later, Devin stopped. This was pointless. Where was he going to go once he climbed out of this crater? Omega Prime was so flat it's not like there was anywhere to hide. Fear grabbed Devin as he slapped his front pockets, hoping that he hadn't lost it. Relief flooded over him once he pulled out his lucky coin. Even after all these years, the gold coin looked pretty good. It was the only good thing he picked up from the Navy. Devin tossed the coin into the air. Heads I run for it, tails I sit around and hope that the Brahmins will take me prisoner instead of shooting me. Tails, maybe I should make it 2 out of 3. Devin pretended to look around to see if anyone would call him on it. That's when he spotted a fissure in the rocky ground, half hidden by debris. An opening of some sorts, worth investigating. Anything to get clear of the smoke and gain some cover before the Brahma heads arrived. It didn't take him long to reach the fissure. Taking a deep breath, one that made him wince, Devin slid into the narrow gap. Cool air greeted him, a real relief from the heat outside, but it did little to ease his concerns. His eyes struggled to adjust, shadows and darkness dancing around him. Fishing a small flashlight from his pocket, Devin stepped further into the fissure. The temperature continued to drop as he shuffled into the underground cavity. Jagged walls closed around him, but the space was too uniform to be a natural cave. The flashlight's feeble beam gave only glimpses of what lay ahead as he moved deeper into the yawning darkness. After a couple of minutes of walking essentially blind, the hair on the back of Devin's neck prickled. This was no cave. The walls and ceiling were too smooth, the angles too precise. Metal, not rock. He was inside something artificial, something enormous. Devin's furtive steps echoed in the vast, hollow space, his pen flashlight casting feeble beams into the engulfing darkness. His mind raced with questions as he ventured deeper inside, the narrow beam of light his only guide in the oppressive darkness. What was this place? Had the Brahmins built it? As he moved forward, the light from his pen flashlight brushed against something massive and metallic. It was difficult to discern its shape at first. The object seemed to absorb the light, its deep cobalt hue creating an illusion of endlessness. Devin's heart skipped a beat when the realization dawned on him. It was a ship, an alien ship, hidden here in the bowels of Omega-1. Devin shook his head, trying to clear the fog of what had to be a concussion. There was no such thing as aliens. Thousands of years of space exploration had proven that. Whatever it was, this thing was huge. Devin traced his hand along the smooth surface, his pain temporarily forgotten, disbelief rising in his throat. A ship. He stood inside the echoing cavity of some kind of spacecraft hangar, with design and dimensions unlike anything he'd ever seen before. Mustering his nerve, Devin drew closer, reached up and touched it. No, not imagining this. The cold, hard metal under his touch was unmistakably real. Maybe it was a stealth ship of some kind, but why was such a vessel buried here? If this truly was a spaceship, it could be his salvation, his chance to escape this dumpy planet. Penlight still pretty much useless, Devin ventured further down the length of the ship. As he ventured closer, a portion of the hull irised open without a sound, beckoning him into its depths. Devin hesitated, his mind teeming with possibilities of what might lie within. Could it be a trap? Or was it simply an abandoned relic waiting to be discovered? Well, it's not like he had a lot of choices here. Explore this alien ship or sit around and wait for a summary execution by a bunch of drone zealots. Heart pounding, right leg limping, Devin moved forward. His light revealed more of the ship's intricate design. Strange symbols were etched into the exotic ship's interior. Devin never considered himself a wimp, but this was pretty damn scary. Inside, he was greeted by utter silence and a warm amber glow, coming from the walls, the ceiling, almost pulsating. There was still time for him to scream, turn around, and run for it. Devin looked over his shoulder. The ship's opening had disappeared. Well, there was still time to scream, but he didn't. This place was amazing. No way, though, he would be able to fly this thing. If the ship didn't have an AI smart enough to pilot, this entire gamble would be a bust. Devin lurched forward, then halted. Fantastic. Now he had a throbbing headache. The least of his problems, he thought, until the pressure behind his eyes intensified, a relentless vice tightening with each step. The pain quickly migrated to his left hemisphere, zeroing in on his comm implant. There, the sensation mutated, becoming a searing agony that clawed at his consciousness. It felt as though his brain was about to explode. Devin's knees buckled, his flashlight falling from his numb fingers. He cried out as fiery tendrils plunged into his mind, shredding all coherent thought. Devin screamed, too overwhelmed with agony to worry about whether his scream sounded manly or not. He was on the floor now, shaking while something grabbed hold of him, something alien, taking over his mind, wishing he was dead. Chapter 3. They would re-educate her once they found out. Re-educate, a euphemism for execute, terminate, erase. She didn't mean to stop taking her symposium. It was an accident. Her last vial had broke. Another harsh deadline. She simply forgot. That's what Kara told herself. One more lie drifting in a lifetime of lies. How many weeks now had she been off the medication? 4 weeks, 2 days, 5 hours. Kara stared at her reflection in the mirror, the stark lights of the bathroom accentuating her pale skin and unremarkable blue eyes. The mirror showed a maturing woman who had perfected the art of blending in, her features devoid of any adornment that might draw attention. She had volunteered to come to Omega-1, not out of love for the harsh environment of nanodiamond mining or the tedium of administrative duties, but to escape. Brahma. With its pervasive brotherhood of spies, Brahma had become suffocating. Here, she hoped, her lapse in taking symposium would go unnoticed for longer. Kara splashed cold water onto her face, washing away all traces of emotion. Weakness could not be tolerated. Emotions led to doubt, and doubt poisoned the mind. The Brotherhood had trained her well. Well enough so she could fake it. Kara nodded at her reflection. Her mask was now firmly back in place. Her life on Omega-1 was a careful balance of invisibility and compliance. Still, she was living on borrowed time. The ghostly form of Brother Andre blinked in behind her. Kara showed no reaction. Surprise betrayed uncertainty, and uncertainty revealed cracks in one's dedication to the path. Like her, Omega-1's acting director wore an elegant black jacket that reached the knees. Military officers wore the same, which was one of the reasons why Brahmins did so badly in ground combat. Easy to spot, easy to kill. Kara quickly toweled off her face and turned from the sink to face the hologram.
Yes, Brother Andre?
Good. Her voice came out even. Andre's voice, however, echoed off the metal walls.
We've received a priority alert from the Corinth. They shot down a suspected smuggler ship and want us to inspect the wreckage.
Inspect. A euphemism for ensure there are no survivors. The order gave Kara pause. Disposing of smugglers fell outside her normal administrative duties, but to object revealed reluctance. Brother Andre's hologram flickered slightly, giving Kara a chance to cover her hesitation.
I'll take a team of 5 to sweep the site.
4 should suffice.
Brother Andre's cold stare bordered on smug. Kara nodded, knowing full well that he would have given her 3 had she asked for 4.
The armory is expecting you. See that the task is completed swiftly.
The hologram said before blinking out. Kara's pulse quickened as she calmly placed her towel on the rack. This assignment was a waste of time. If the smuggler was shot down by a battlecruiser, there would be nothing to do but scrape him from the floor. However, at least, this was something different. Also a chance to slip from under the Brotherhood's watchful eye, if only briefly. It also bought her more time, and time is what she badly needed. Chapter 4.
Move.
Patel barely had time to get out of the way before Jessica plopped onto the pilot's seat. She ignored Patel's pout face and concentrated on getting them the hell out of here.
How many on our tails?
3. Dragon-class fighters.
Not exactly bad odds, especially with all these ships for cover. Jessica keyed the aft thrusters to life and sent the Falcon surging forward into the snarl of ships queued before the arc gate. In the cramped confines of the cockpit, Jessica's fingers danced over the controls with the grace of a seasoned pilot. Patel, her whiny co-pilot, was a necessary annoyance, a dead ode to the Freedman Syndicate. The man bordered on incompetent, but he knew how to lift a crate and handle a blaster. Jessica gritted her teeth, trying to stay focused. The symposium cargo in the hold was a magnet for trouble, and right now it was drawing the attention of mercenaries. 3 enemy laser blasts sizzled past, a little close for comfort, but not close enough, because she was music, and this beautiful, almost new Commodore cruiser was her instrument, and she was ready to play.
What the hell you waiting for? Return fire.
What? We're in a goddamn traffic jam.
The ship, her ship barely paid for, shuddered under the impact of a laser blast, jolting them forward.
Lasers ready.
Patel muttered, finally springing into action. Jessica couldn't help but wonder why she even bothered with the man. Oh, right. The favor. Jessica wove them in and out of the lumbering transports and freight haulers waiting to enter FTL, using them as shields. It wouldn't be enough to lose the Dragon fighters, but with Patel missing every shot, it should buy them some time. The bridgecom crackled to life with the stern voice of New Eden's traffic control, demanding an explanation for their reckless actions.
I'm trying not to die up here.
Care to be more specific?
Came the bored reply. Jessica bit back a sarcastic response. Traffic control surely knew they were under attack, but there was no FTL travel without ARC gates, so dealing with bureaucratic idiots was a necessary evil.
You deal with them, Patel.
Kinda busy with the lasers right now, hon.
She almost whacked him upside his fat head. Patel knew she didn't like to be called hun or any other dismissive monikers. Lucky for him, she was too busy piloting this ship like a mad woman. Jessica keyed the comm.
Ambassador, get your skinny ass up here.
Grinding her teeth, Jessica threw the ship into a tight spiral to evade another salvo. The Merc's laser blasts were hitting them more and more. The hull could only take so much punishment. Eventually, she would have to shake their pursuers before making a run on the gate. Barclay, the epitome of diplomatic poise, stumbled onto the bridge, struggling to maintain his balance as the ship jerked violently under another hit.
Yes, Captain.
A blast clipped the ship's rear.
We've got 3 mercs on us. Call traffic control and get us priority through the gate.
Barclay shook his head.
They'll never allow that. But I will make the attempt.
It's that or die.
Jessica jerked the control stick up in order to avoid colliding with a massive freighter. One of the mercs behind her wasn't as fast and crashed right into the freighter's belly. The surviving mercs probably wouldn't fall for that trick, and she doubted that traffic control, let alone the freighter captain, would be happy. But they were alive, for now. She tuned out Barclay's smooth assurances and excuses to traffic control, punctuated by sharp curses from Patel as he returned fire. She had a ship to fly.
New Eden refuses to disrupt the queue.
Barclay reported, now strapped in a seat.
But patrol ships are being dispatched.
That'll take too damn long.
Patel snapped. It would. They were about a minute from being blasted into space dust. Time for drastic action. Jessica rolled the Falcon into a 180-degree spin until they faced back the way they'd come. She gave full throttle, sending them hurtling straight toward the shimmering arc gate, but a hulking Odyssey-class luxury cruiser was already aligned to enter, blocking their path. Patel cursed even as his fingers flew across the weapons console. Return fire streaked out, forcing one fighter to veer off course. That still left one dragon fighter, and it was gaining.
Hold tight.
Jessica said, smiling like a fool as she flipped the Falcon sideways and rocketed toward the arc gate. The luxury cruiser ahead was already aligned for its jump. If they both entered the arc gate simultaneously, the consequences would be catastrophic. Explosions. Lost in interstellar space, perhaps. All kinds of nasty. But Jessica saw an opportunity in the madness. She matched her ship's speed to the freighters, sliding into a parallel course just as the mercs closed in. She took a deep breath as she steered the Falcon, her eyes locked on the immense structure of the arc gate rushing toward them. The luxury cruiser, a colossal silhouette against the backdrop of stars, had already begun its transit.
We're not going to make it.
Patel was right. They weren't. Chapter 5. Needles stabbing his whole body. That was the first thing Devin was aware of. His eyes wouldn't open. Nothing but darkness. He couldn't move. Even his mouth was frozen. I must be dead, and they buried me. No, that made no sense. If he were dead, he shouldn't feel these needles or whatever these things were piercing his skin. Devin let out a moan even though he was no longer in pain. Actually, he felt pretty good considering. He tried accessing his comm implant to see how long he was out. No response.
Ah, I see that you are awake.
The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Devin's senses slowly returned to him as the needles retracted. An opening appeared in the darkness, spilling in bright light. That's when he realized he was in a sarcophagus of some kind, one that stood perpendicular to the floor. Blinking against the room's brightness, Devin's vision slowly adjusted to reveal a strange medical sickbay of sorts. The ceiling and walls glowed a soothing neon blue. The place looked spotless and pretty bare except for 4 additional sarcophagi. What the hell? Devin's nakedness startled him. Memories of the crash and subsequent discovery of the alien ship rushed back. Gingerly, Devin pulled himself out of the sarcophagus and stood on shaky feet. His leg felt better, though. He touched his left side. No more cracked ribs. What was going on?
Hello.
The voice seemed to come from all around Devin. It sounded human. Male. but slightly artificial.
I'm Locke Roman R.
You're this ship's AI? Devin asked, trying to piece together this situation.
Not at all.
Locke Romana's reply had a hint of offense.
I am a quantum intelligence. QI, if you prefer.
Impressive. Mind if I call you Locke?
If you must.
Devin's mind struggled to grasp the implications, all while trying to reconcile his sudden healing with the strange way he felt. Almost like he was inside someone else's body. What did you do to me? There was a slight pause before Locke answered.
My sincere apologies. In my eagerness to communicate with you, I accessed the implant in your brain. Regrettably, the incompatibility of our systems caused you to have an aneurysm, and a heart attack, and a...
But you saved me.
It was the least that I could do, given that I was the catalyst to your kidney failure, and...
Enough. Devin held up his hand, wondering if Locke could see him. How did you know how to fix me? It almost sounded like Locke cleared his throat.
I downloaded information from your brain, which sadly was sparse on relevant information. I highly recommend that you take a human biology refresher course when you have the opportunity. Fortunately, now that this ship is no longer in stasis, I was able to divert energy into appropriating the required information for your species via the humans mining this planet.
It almost sounded like the QI was calling him stupid. So you still managed to fix me.
Quite so. You're better than new, with a few additional enhancements that I am certain that you will appreciate.
Enhancements?
Well, I was the cause of your death. Temporarily, obviously.
Locke's tone shifted to something resembling a patient mentor.
I felt compelled to restore you to wellness, but also to enhance your strength, stamina, etc.
That was nice of you. Devin's eyes located what might be an exit. There just had to be a catch. Any other enhancements I should know about? And where are my clothes? A grayish-white platform rose from the floor.
Forgive me. Your clothes had so much blood on them, and they smelled awful. So I recycled them. These will fit you much better.
Devin hurried to the table, noting how fluid his movements were. No limp. His eyesight, super clear. Devin eyed the new clothes, frowning at how tight the jumpsuit looked. You were telling me about the enhancements, Locke. There was a definite pause before Locke answered this time.
I made some slight tweaks to your DNA for you to captain this ship.
You did what? No way he heard Locke right. Where's the crew?
Dead. Given that I've been trapped inside this planet for well over 600,000 years, it's quite possible the Shamash are dead as well.
Devin's mind raced with the implications. Locke had messed with his DNA. Who are the Shamash?
My creators.
Locke replied. Why did the Shamash stuff you inside a planet?
They were displeased when they discovered I'm sentient.
Devin started dressing while pondering the danger a sentient quantum intelligence like Locke could pose. Was Locke a danger to him as well? He could deal with that later. He needed to get this ship airborne and off this planet before the Brahmins caught up to him. Devin was halfway dressed when a troubling thought struck him. Hey, Locke, you never really explained what you meant when you said you altered me. Locke's silence was unsettling. Locke?
Perhaps it is best if I simply show you.
As Devin slipped his right arm into his jumpsuit sleeve, he caught sight of his skin. Gold, metallic, almost crystal-like. Panic set in. His breaths came in rapid gasps. What did you do to me?
Made it possible for you to take ownership of this ship.
Locke responded matter-of-factly.
You are most welcome.
Devin doubled over, his mind struggling to come to terms with his transformed body. You think this is funny?
That would be callous of me, though I would be lying if I did not admit that I find your emotional breakdown quite fascinating. However, there are urgent matters requiring your attention.
Like what? Devin managed to say, wanting to cry.
You must go to the bridge and claim formal ownership of this vessel, and name the ship. Also, you really should deal with the armed people who have arrived at the crater's perimeter, since they are here to kill you.
Chapter 6. Even with the sunscreen booster shot, Kara knew that she would have a sunburn by the end of this mission. The crater loomed before Kara and her team. It was larger and deeper than any ordinary crash should have carved, deeper than their typical nano-diamond pits as well. Kara studied the blackened, smoking gouge with a critical eye as she led her team down into its depths. No easy task in her knee-length coat, which was flexible and light enough but totally unsuited for the planet's heat and wasteland landscape. It took 32 minutes to reach the bottom of the crater. Brother Jacob fell in beside Kara, his laser rifle ready.
Orders regarding survivors, sister?
His tone held a hint of challenge. As a female in authority over him, Kara knew he bristled.
Take photos, but not prisoners.
Large chunks of the shattered ship lay strewn throughout the bottom of the crater. Judging by the size of some of the pieces, Kara guessed this used to be a freighter.
Spread out and scan.
Her brothers did as told without complaint. No surprise there. That's how they were raised, and daily symposium dosages kept everyone compliant. Kara realized that now. Carefully, she stepped into what must have been the cockpit, now little more than a hollowed-out shell. Strange. No blood. Anywhere. No dead bodies either. Kara drew the inside of her wrist toward her lips.
Any sign of survivors?
Brother Jacob answered first.
No heat signature save our own.
Kara wasn't surprised. It took them over 2 hours to drive to the crash site. It was logical for any survivors to put as much distance between the crash and themselves as much as possible.
Now where did you run off to?
She whispered to herself. Stepping through the cockpit's former hull, Kara spotted a crevice in the crater wall, partially hidden by wreckage. It was an anomaly amidst the destruction, and perhaps a potential escape route where their prey had fled. Brother Jacob, seldom in a hurry, approached Kara from behind.
We'll check that fissure.
Kara decided, pointing to the opening.
As you wish, sister.
Brother Jacob's voice was devoid of emotion, just like hers. She doubted that he shared the thrill of actually doing something different. That was fine, as long as he didn't suspect that she was excited about this unexpected development. Brother Jacob would report her without hesitation. It took far too long to reach the crevice, but rushing was not the Brahmin way. Yet another reason why they were slaughtered on the battlefield. If it weren't for their big ships, Brahma and all its colonies would have been conquered centuries ago. Kara waved the men onward into the narrow gap. They switched on flashlights, illuminating a corridor with smooth metallic walls. The air grew cooler the further they went. Kara drew her wrist close to her face. A red upside-down triangle flashed. Whatever this place was made of, it blocked their comms. Single file, Brother Jacob led the way into a large black chamber that practically swallowed their lights.
Do you hear that?
Kara wasn't certain if Brother Jacob was speaking directly to her, but she answered anyway.
The hum appears to be coming from deeper within the chamber.
All four of them stopped, blocked by something beyond huge. Kara shined her flashlight on whatever it was, but the thing was dark as cobalt and seemed to absorb the light from her flashlight instead of reflecting it.
Is this a ship?
Brother Roland sounded more annoyed than awed.
One of ours, no doubt.
The lies were coming easily now. Then again, they always had.
Did you see that?
Brother Jacob waved his flashlight this way and that, motion to their left, then nothing. Brother Roland cried out. Something had grabbed him. Acting on instinct, Kara snatched 2 glow sticks from her satchel and tossed them to the floor. She could now clearly see a gold metallic figure hovering over Brother Roland. Whatever it was, it had Roland in a sleeper hold.
Fire!
Brother Jacob's order completely circumvented the chain of command. Brothers Lawrence and Armand fired anyway, pummeling Roland's body with laser blasts. The lasers had no apparent effect on the creature, who immediately launched itself at Brother Armand. Armand tried to step to the side, but the attempt didn't give him enough time to avoid the gold creature from plowing into him. Both went down in a bundle. The creature, the owner of the ship, Kara presumed, pounded Armand's bloody face with metallic fists while Jacob and Lawrence tried to get a better firing angle. Kara wondered how long it would take the men to figure out that lasers were useless against this creature, and that a more physical approach was necessary. Brother Jacob realized the obvious first. He whacked the creature over the head with the butt of his laser rifle. The creature rolled off Armand, who looked to be in pretty bad shape. Inhumanly fast, the creature sprang to its feet and snatched Brother Lawrence up by the collar, then tossed him several meters into a nearby wall. Jacob swung his rifle at the creature again, but the creature was too fast, too strong. It grabbed Jacob's rifle barrel and pulled Jacob into him, rewarding Jacob with a left elbow to the jaw, dropping Brother Jacob into one inglorious heap. The illumination that the glow sticks provided wasn't much, thankfully enough for Kara to witness the spectacle before her. Whatever this strange creature happened to be, it was not a trained fighter or even military. It was more of a brawler. It was also not made of metal as she originally thought, at least not completely metal. Its face and hands seemed to have a crystal surface. To his credit, Brother Lawrence had the temerity to engage the creature again. A broken nose was his reward. However, he did succeed in distracting the creature. Laser knife drawn, Brother Jacob rushed up behind the creature while it strangled Brother Lawrence. Without hesitation, Kara shot him. Brother Jacob clawed feebly at the hole in his back as he slid down the crystal creature. It released Brother Lawrence, turned around, and stared at her. Kara wouldn't let her resolve wither under the alien's gaze. Quickly, methodically, she approached her fallen team members, executing each with a shot to the head. Brother Lawrence tried to crawl away. She half expected him to beg, but that was not the Brahmin way.
Forgive me, Brother Lawrence,
she whispered before shooting him too with her pistol. Why? The creature asked, his English standard perfect and without accent. That was surprising. Why did you kill them? Kara kept her answer calm and logical.
They've seen you and your ship.
Kara replied, rising from Lawrence's lifeless body. So have you. The threat in his voice was clear.
I want to come with you.
The creature, obviously an alien, looked at her with cold, foreign eyes with no pupils, instead 2 red dots. Easily 2 meters tall, Kara wasn't certain whether the alien was beautiful or hideous. Its face and hands, a metallic cross between a corpse and a crystal god. Their eyes locked, a silent understanding passing between them. It turned away, heading towards the strange ship, where a circular hatch dilated open in the strange vessel's hull. Definitely not a human ship. The creature paused at the hatch and looked back over its shoulder. An invitation to join it? To abandon everything she knew and disappear into the stars. Coming? Kara gazed at the bodies of her fallen brothers.
I'm a murderer and a heretic, and I've never felt so alive.
Kara returned her pistol to her side holster and hurried to catch up to the strange creature. No, Brahmins never rushed. But this time she did. Chapter 7. Jessica was half tempted to unstrap, jump up, and do a little jig. Thanks to her epic piloting skills, they had made it through the arc gate without exploding. Hopefully the luxury cruiser they cut in front of was okay too. If not, New Eden would pull her license and put a bounty on her.
Positive thinking, Jessica.
The Falcon exited FLT transit in a brilliant white flash. Jessica's heart sank.
Is that a...
Brahmin battlecruiser.
Patel started pressing buttons. So did Jessica. Not fast enough, though. The battlecruiser wasted no time. A laser blast hit them dead on, sending the Falcon into a chaotic spin. Systems flickered and died, leaving them with nothing but the barest thread of life support. Ambassador Barclay raised his voice over the ship's alarms.
Let these zealots know that you have an ambassador aboard.
Jessica ducked beneath the console, frantically sorting through burnt cables, her mind racing for solutions.
Patel, get comms back up now.
Another blast rocked the Falcon, jarring them violently. Patel's voice was grim.
We're not going to make it.
We are going to make it.
Jessica asserted, gritting her teeth while she dodged sparks and smoldering wires.
They're powering up again!
Patel shouted.
Forward guns charging.
Stall them.
Comms crackled on. Jessica pulled herself from under the nav console and hit the comms button.
How about giving us a chance to surrender, dipshits?
Barclay shook his head.
You would never make it in the Ambassador Corps, I'm afraid.
Looks like the cruiser's powering up lasers again.
Damn, Patel was right. They weren't going to make it. On the plus side, the Brahma heads took less than an hour to board her ship. Brahmins had a reputation for being incredibly methodical and notoriously slow, no doubt due to the drugs they took. On the minus side, she was in deep shit if they found the illegal cargo she was smuggling. Jessica stole another look at the leader of the boarding party. Round, handsome face, Asian features, tall and utterly humorless. Unsurprising. The man, obviously an enforcer, dressed like a priest, why not act like one? All Brahmins did. There would be no flirting her way out of this mess with this guy. Jessica, Ambassador Barclay, and Patel were lined up at gunpoint on her small bridge. Jessica itched to strike but stayed still. Priest collars or not, the two guards flanking them looked like they knew how to use the pulse cannons they were carrying. While his men searched her ship, Enforcer Chen gave the bridge the white glove test and frowned repeatedly, often darting an accusing glare at Jessica, like she was the maid instead of the ship's captain. Barclay cleared his throat.
As New Eden's ambassador to our Menth, I demand to speak to your superior.
Enforcer Chen spun around, dark eyes sharp.
You are on a smuggler's ship, Ambassador. Therefore, you have no right to demand anything.
Smuggling?
Jessica could feel Barclay looking her way, but she pretended not to notice.
Surely this must be a mistake.
Enforcer Chen nodded, almost smiling.
It is a mistake.
He pointed at Jessica.
Her mistake.
One of Chen's men marched onto the bridge and clomped over to Chen.
Symposium cargo found, Enforcer Chen.
Symposium?
Barclay half-whispered.
Okay, the cargo is here, just like I promised.
Patel puffed out his chest.
Now pay up.
Patel's betrayal struck Jessica like a physical blow. She lunged over Barclay to get at the man, only to be restrained by a stoic guard.
Thanks. She's a tiger, that one. My money, please. Brother David, please pay the man his due.
The enforcer, besides Patel, raised his blaster and fired, splattering blood all over Barclay. Chen then proceeded to coldly recite the law, his gaze fixed on Jessica.
Section 5, subsection 10 clearly states that trafficking in Symposium is punishable by death.
Please.
Barclay was in full diplomat mode now, for all the good it would do them.
Show mercy. I swear to you that New Eden will compensate you.
Jessica couldn't get over how emotionless Chen's face remained. For half a second, she wondered if he was this stiff in bed. Barclay's pleas for clemency went on until a bored Chen appeared to relent.
Place them in the life pod.
What about my ship?
Jessica hated herself for how desperate she sounded.
We're impounding this vessel,
Chen replied, calm as picking daisies.
You're going to leave us stranded in space and we're as good as dead.
A ghost of a smile crossed Chen's lip as he gestured to the headless lump on the floor that used to be her co-pilot. The message was clear. A slow and painful death, or sudden gruesome one.
Come on.
Jessica sidestepped Patel's remains.
I'll show you where the life pod is.
Chapter 8. The bridge door hissed open softly as they approached. Devin didn't like the idea of exposing his back to the Brahmin, especially after she smoked her team as calmly as if she were drinking iced tea. Not that she could harm him now in this altered state, but old habits and mindset die hard. The ship, his ship, was huge. 4 decks. Yet the transit pods got them to the bridge in mere minutes. As much as he loved the Blue Jay, this alien vessel was the stuff of dreams. Devin inhaled, marveling at the expansive bridge, its floors and consoles gleaming, so much bigger than his old freighter's cramped cockpit. Smelled cleaner, too. Status lock? He asked.
Life support is nearing full operation, Captain.
Once again, Locke's voice came from everywhere and nowhere and was surprisingly respectful. Devin wondered how long that would last. He kept an eye on the Brahmin, gauging her reaction to Locke's omnipresent voice. She didn't react, instead choosing to scan the bridge with practiced eyes.
Where is your communication station?
She asked, her tone and expression flat. It's a little late to be calling for help. Not even a hint of a smile.
Headquarters will be expecting a report from me by now.
Devin continued staring at her, wondering if he really could trust her. She didn't seem to be bothered by his alien aspect. Well, that made one of them. Locke?
The ship's communication station is to your left, Sister Kara.
A station a good 6 meters from where they now stood started glowing neon blue. Kara turned her head slightly, trying to pinpoint Locke's voice.
How do you know my name?
Please forgive the intrusion. I downloaded the information from your implant and comms device.
Kara pulled up her right sleeve to look at her wrist.
You can do that remotely. Amazing. Are you this ship's AI?
I am a quantum intelligence.
Now that sounded more like the snooty Locke Devin had come to know.
My name is Locke Romanar. However, Captain Sparks prefers to call me Locke under the pretense that it is easier to pronounce.
Kara looked at Devin, one eyebrow raised.
Sparks.
You can call me Captain. Kara nodded, then headed over to the comm station.
This console looks different.
After some quick directions from Locke, Kara was soon connected to the Brahmin home base, audio only. If she tried anything stupid, well, he preferred not to think about what he would do to her if she did.
Brother Andre, this is Sister Kara reporting.
Report.
Brother Andre's voice was as calm as Kara's, with a slight edge to it.
The downed ship is in pieces.
Kara was dragging this out, buying them time. Good.
Survivors?
Kara glanced over her shoulder at Devin before responding.
One survivor. We are pursuing him at this time.
Stop dawdling then and eliminate him.
The line has been terminated, Captain.
Thanks. Devin appreciated Locke's confirmation. He didn't know how the comm station worked, and having an open mic to an enemy would be bad. Kara turned away from the console to face him, her pale face as impassive as ever. She wasn't exactly unattractive, but the Brahmin wasn't even close to his type.
Do you know what happened to the survivor of the crash?
Devin didn't answer, just stared at Kara, still wondering if he could trust her. She could be a Brahmin spy. His gut said no. Brahmins aren't that imaginative. The woman was clearly smart. As much as he didn't like people, with a ship this big, he did need a crew. Kara waited patiently while he made up his mind. Locke, let's show the lady what happened to the poor soul who crashed. A splash of yellow light enveloped Devin's body. Kara's eyes went wide for a few seconds before returning to their normal state. Finally, a reaction from the woman. It wasn't much of a reaction, but still.
You're human.
100%, well, not exactly 100%. Devin suddenly felt self-conscious. Locke, are we ready to leave yet?
Power is at 87% and climbing, Captain. More than enough to leave the planet.
Why do I get the feeling there's a but?
Well, there remains the matter of us escaping the hangar and Earth entombing this vessel.
To Devin's surprise, Kara interrupted.
You're going to blast your way out of this hangar?
Precisely, Sister Kara. Precisely.
Chapter 9. Devin was no engineer, but when you own a ship with no crew, you learn a few things. He was totally lost in the weapons chamber. Locke's directions helped a little. Luckily, he brought Kara along. She had absolutely no problem following Locke's obtuse directions. Why was Locke being so nice to the Brahmin? Could Locke tell that he wasn't a people person? Maybe it was time to play nice. So many relationships that he walked away from. So many bridges burned, exploded. Devin looked down at Kara, who was crouching on her hands and knees and inside the guts of some power terminal. The Brahmin had no qualms about getting dirty, but would she balk about getting her DNA altered? Locke had made it clear that anyone crewing the ship would need to interface with the ship itself. But could he really trust Locke? A superior intelligence entombed for hundreds of thousands of years. Locke?
Yes, Captain.
What's the status of Kara's friends? Devin noted that Kara looked up when he intentionally didn't say Sister Kara.
The Brahmin have instructed one of their orbital weapons arrays to target this location.
I don't think we're going to have time to hook all the ship's weapons up.
Agreed, Captain.
Devin turned his attention back to Kara. Finish up, Kara, we're leaving. An hour later, Devin and Kara returned to the bridge. Devin allowed himself a grin as he surveyed the two-tiered bridge, its sleek design framing the holographic mist display of Omega Prime's surface beneath them. The upper deck was much smaller than the lower one, hosting mostly the captain's station, but it still offered a near-panoramic view of the bridge. Devin approached the weapons station, its surface coming alive at his touch. Locke was in guide and mentor mode now.
The lasers require precise calibration, Captain. Align the energy matrices to the subterranean contours for optimal impact.
Devin glanced at Kara, who was standing next to him. She pointed to the glowing panel section in front of him.
Press the yellow then red buttons.
Right. Devin did as he was told. The laser weapons hummed to life and a circular hollow display appeared. Soon he was initiating Locke's firing sequence. The beams lanced out as they meticulously sliced through rock and metal. The lasers didn't just cut, they sculpted, carving a cavernous corridor to the sky, their precision a testament to the ship's and Devin's raw power.
Locke?
Kara's blue eyes stayed focused on what Devin was doing.
Yes, Sister Kara.
Has the satellite array locked in on our position yet?
Yes, Sister Kara.
Please. Kara's just fine.
Kara and Devin's eyes met, but he didn't comment on the name change. Locke, is there anything we can do about that weapons array?
Done, Captain. I have spoken to all 4 Brahman arrays, and they agreed to take themselves offline for the next 2 hours.
Devin tried to concentrate on what he was doing with the lasers, but was finding it hard. How did you pull that off?
I gave the poor things a choice. Comply with my request, or I shut them down completely.
Sounded a little Machiavellian to Devin, but if it got them off this rock without getting smoked, he wouldn't complain. The ship rocked gently with the energy discharges. Streams of molten earth and superheated metal reflected on the small holodisplay, painting a picture of their slow ascent. The battle cruiser that blasted him earlier might still be a problem, but he would cross that bridge later. As the last layers of Omega Prime's crust gave way to open space, Devin's command was simple, yet charged with anticipation. Locke, prepare for ascent.
Engaging anti-gravity thrusters now. I suggest that you and our guest take a seat.
Devin wondered if it was his imagination or did Locke sound a little excited. Devin left the weapons stations and hurried up the ramp that led to the captain's chair. Kara settled into the comm seat with less fanfare, though Devin did catch a hint of excitement in her voice when she addressed him.
This ship. It's incredible. What do you call it?
Devin pondered for a moment, feeling the weight of Kara's gaze. Locke, we don't have a name for this ship yet, do we?
Alas, no, Captain. You neglected to designate a name along with forgetting to put the toilet seat down after you finished in the lavatory.
Smartass. But Devin refused to let Locke spoil this moment. What shall we name her?
Captain's choice.
The answer came to Devin like a whisper from the cosmos, a nod to the very essence of their escape, the very thing Devin suspected all 3 of them sought. How about we call the ship Freedom? Chapter 10. Devin clenched his teeth and allowed the planet's G-force to wash over him. Another minute, and it was over. They were now whisking through Omega Prime's exosphere on their way out of this godforsaken system. To Devin's surprise, the bridge still had gravity even as he watched Omega-1 grow smaller in the holograph mist. The holograph wasn't really mist even though it felt like it when he touched it. Locke, how come there's still gravity?
Freedom generates its own, Captain.
How is that possible?
The same way the ship propels itself, extracting energy from the cosmos.
Devin chewed that bit of information over for a few seconds, maybe a half a minute. No, still didn't make sense. Like from a black hole? Locke was in full snooty mode when he responded.
That's a gross oversimplification, but essentially, yes.
Kara spoke up, a touch of wonder in her voice.
Locke, are you saying that the Freedom extracts energy from stars instead of using engines or propellants?
Indeed. Basically, the ship turns that harvested energy into miniature black holes.
Devin's hands hovered near the captain's console to his right, the bridge's ambient light reflecting in his eyes as he contemplated Locke's revelation of a black hole-powered ship. Humanity's theories had been just that, theoretical, yet here he was commanding a vessel that made those fantastic theories reality. Locke's warning of an incoming Brahman battlecruiser cut through his thoughts. Devin leaned forward, scrutinizing his console's monitor. Was this the ship that shot him down? The Brahman cruiser, a sleek predatory shape against the star-studded blackness of space, inched closer. Locke, how long will it take you to bring weapons online?
Mere seconds. I could do so now if you wish.
No, I don't want to tip our hand just yet.
Captain?
Kara spun her chair around to address Devin.
Incoming transmission from the Pegasus.
They didn't bother with comms last time, Devin muttered under his breath.
That's because they desire the freedom to be in as good condition as possible. When they take it.
Kara's response caught Devin off guard. He made a mental note of the bridge's acoustics. He would need to be careful what he said in the future. Accept connection, audio only, Devin instructed, his voice firm. Kara obliged, and the bridge filled with the crisp sound of a man comfortable being in charge.
This is Enforcer Chen of the Pegasus. To whom do I have the pleasure of speaking?
For a bunch of atheist zealots, the Brahmins did seem to enjoy their religious mythology, naming their home planet Brahma and ships after fantastical horses. Captain Sparks speaking. Devin noted the slight pause from Chen's side of the conversation.
You're the one we accidentally shot down earlier, aren't you?
This guy was smart. Devin's eyes drifted toward Kara. He would have to play this carefully. I am neither confirming or denying that, Chen.
Let me make it easy for you then, Captain.
The way that he said captain sounded like captain was in air quotes.
You have stolen a vessel that belongs to the Brahma Commonwealth. Return it, and we shall allow you and your crew safe passage from the Omega Prime system.
Devin glanced over at Kara, shaking her head slowly. Good. She didn't trust this guy either. So tell me, Chen, just how am I to exactly leave this amazing star system if I give you my ship? Not surprisingly, Chen had an answer at the ready.
As a courtesy for mistakenly destroying your freighter, we will give you a star cruiser, worth twice as much as your old freighter, as an apology.
Very generous of you. I need to think this over for a spell.
Of course. You have 1 minute.
The Pegasus has ended comms.
Thanks, Kara. The woman already felt like crew. Devin exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the hollow mist where the Brahman cruiser loomed. Locke, can we take them?
The Freedom is a star battle cruiser, Captain Sparks.
Pride was evident in Locke's voice.
The ship is triple-hulled with 3 additional layers of shielding. Each layer can absorb enormous amounts of energy. The Freedom's weaponry far outmatches what the Brahmins bring to the table.
Thanks for the info dump, Locke.
You are most welcome, Captain.
Good. Locke doesn't understand sarcasm. Yet. Locke, acquire a weapons solution on the Pegasus and blow it to hell. Payback would be sweet, so why was nothing happening? Is there a problem, Locke?
None, Captain Sparks. However, may I make a suggestion before we proceed annihilating your fellow humans?
Devin waved his hand for Locke to proceed. He now knew that Locke could pretty much see everything on the Freedom. Then it occurred to him that Locke might not know what the gesture meant. Go ahead, Locke.
I propose the following. An alternative to destroying the Brahman battlecruiser and killing the 207 lives aboard the ship. I could instead trigger the Pegasus emergency fusion core to eject.
Interesting suggestion, Locke. For now, though, acquire a weapons lock on the Pegasus, but hold fire, Devin commanded, still itching to retaliate.
Pegasus is demanding a response, Captain.
Stall them. Kara shook her head.
There is no stalling Brahman enforcers. A warning volley will likely arrive within the next minute.
Devin didn't need another minute, but he did want to see how the Freedom would fare under assault from a battlecruiser. Not that he didn't trust Locke, Okay. He didn't completely trust Locke. Devin felt a slight tremor at his feet. Did anyone feel that? Kara nodded but looked more intrigued than worried.
The Pegasus struck us with 2 laser blasts to our starboard bow.
Locke didn't sound particularly worried either. Kara was right, though. Still, it was worth it, considering he barely felt the laser blasts. But as much as he wanted revenge for the Brahma heads that destroyed the Blue Jay, it was good to know that Locke had some morals about him. Unless he was throwing Devin some red meat to misdirect him, to make Devin think that he had no ill intentions against humanity. He might be overthinking this, but Locke was a goddamn quantum intelligence. There would be no outthinking him. The only edge Devin had was experience. It wasn't much of an edge, but it was something. Okay, Locke, I think it's time to eject the Pegasus's fusion core.
One moment, Captain. There. I have finished scanning the Pegasus computers and copying their data. Fusion core, ejection complete.
The Pegasus has initiated a ship in distress signal.
Kara looked over her shoulder at Devin as if awaiting further orders. Excellent, Locke. Plot a course to Omega Prime's Arc Gate.
The Brahmins will be able to follow us if we use the Arc Gate.
Can't be helped, Locke.
We do have another option, Captain.
It was nice that Locke added Captain, but the QI still sounded a little smug. Devin exchanged quick glances with Kara. What other option?
The Freedom has its own FTL drive.
Of course it does. Chapter 11. Kara was busy reviewing the Freedom's FTL drive schematics when a yellow light started blinking on the comms console's far right. Pressing it summoned Locke's voice through the cool air of the bridge.
Distress beacon detected, Captain Sparks.
Sparks exhaled slowly, his voice steady. I thought we already established that the Pegasus is crying for help.
The signal is not from the Pegasus.
Locke clarified just as Kara zoomed in on the signal's source on the locator panel.
It's a life pod. New Eden design.
Kara wondered how Locke could discern such specifics since he was supposedly entombed on Omega-1 for over 600,000 years. Kara swiveled her chair toward the center of the bridge. The bridge's design was breathtaking. Captain Sparks, perched on his command seat on the bridge's top level, drew her focus. He was flipping what appeared to be a gold coin into the air. Were all Edeners like him? While competent, he didn't strike her as exceptional in any way, yet somehow he had managed to walk away unscathed from a crash that should have killed him. It could be a trap, Sparks suggested, eyes locking onto Kara's, searching for insight. She understood the unspoken question. Could he trust her?
It's not a trap, Captain,
Kara said, her voice tinged with the conviction of someone who understood the limitations of her people.
We Brahmins aren't particularly imaginative.
Sparks looked away from her and addressed the air. What do you think, Locke?
Certainly good karma.
Kara wondered what the quantum intelligence could possibly know about karma. Locke was undeniably brilliant and an enigma. At times, he was incredibly considerate and helpful. Other times, he bordered on rude, at least when it came to Sparks. Compelled by curiosity, she found herself asking,
What would your creators do, Locke?
The Shamash would certainly retrieve the life pod.
Locke's tone softened.
They would also most likely dissect the pod's occupants.
Sparks nodded, his expression reflective, almost grave. What do you think we should do, Kara? If anything. He was testing her, understandable. Her team did try to kill him.
It may compromise our situation, but it is the right thing to do. So says the murderess.
Kara kept that thought to herself. Compromise? Sparks frowned. How would saving the people in the life pod compromise us? Before Kara could respond, the bridge's lights shifted from warm white lights into a crimson hue.
A Brahmin battle carrier and corvette are headed in our direction.
Just as Kara suspected. It was inevitable that the Commonwealth would have more than one military ship to protect their mining operations in the Omega Prime system. Range lock?
374 kilometers, Captain.
Distance to the life pod?
103 kilometers.
Kara watched Sparks but didn't stare. She guessed he was doing the math in his head. Locke, does the Freedom have a tractor beam or something? There was a notable pause before the quantum intelligence answered.
What is a tractor beam?
An invisible beam of energy that magically pulls objects and people toward you.
Please be serious, Captain. We both know that there is no such thing as magic.
From where I'm sitting, Locke, Devin gestured toward the bridge, this entire ship is magic.
I see your point. No. The Freedom has no such magical device.
Kara placed her hands on her lap and contemplated the main holodisplay, which made up a good third of the first-level floor. The battle carrier and corvette were drawing closer, having obviously ignored the flailing Pegasus. Suggestions, anyone? As formidable as this ship was turning out to be, Kara didn't like their chances against a carrier and corvette. She kept her opinion on the matter to herself. Locke didn't.
Well, I could take control of the LifePod's automated computer and use its limited thrusters to bring it into the Freedom's hangar.
Great idea. This was the first time Kara heard Sparks praise the QI. How many spacecraft do we have in the hangar bay?
1, Captain.
Now that was surprising.
Why only one spacecraft, Locke?
Fair question, Sister Kara.
Please call me Kara.
Sister Kara was part of her old life now.
As you wish.
Locke's tone remained pleasant.
As to your question, my creators stopped supplying the Freedom once they realized that I had gained sentience.
That was understandable. The Shamash were being cautious, little good it did them in the end. Locke, how much time do we have to retrieve the life pod before the Brahmins are in firing range?
22 minutes at their current speed.
The QI didn't sound very worried, unlike Sparks. How much time do you need to bring the life pod on board?
19.6 minutes.
Great, Sparks muttered. Okay, let's do it. Hopefully they'll have some food. Kara reached down into her satchel and pulled out a protein bar. She held it up to Sparks, who eyed it hungrily. I don't want to take your last one. His eyes said that he did. He was just being polite.
I have 4 more left.
She had brought them for her team, whom she killed in cold blood. So this was what life was going to be like without Symposium, feeling guilt, among other things. Kara almost smiled. Yes, this is exactly what she wanted, the ability to feel and to be free. Chapter 12. The Brahma attack force was closing in, but Devin had made his choice. All he could do now was wait while the life pod slowly entered the Freedom's empty hangar, empty except for the cool-looking ship docked at the far side of the bay. He looked forward to inspecting it further when he got the chance, perhaps when people weren't trying to blow him to bits. Devin kept his dark thoughts to himself as he and Kara waited inside the hangar control room. Kara observed the slow process without saying a word. Great conversationalist she wasn't. But that's not why he brought her with him. He wanted to see how she interacted with other people, continue feeling her out. As much as he didn't like people, Devin knew that he needed a crew. Right now, Kara was the best and perhaps only candidate. Barrel-shaped and a little beat up, there was really nothing unusual about the life pod, except that it was Locke guiding it into the Freedom's hangar bay instead of the pod's onboard computer. Insanely stupid was how Locke described it. Compared to him, they all were. Once the bay doors sealed and pressurized, Devin and Kara exited the control room and approached the pod. Its door slid open, revealing a stunning woman wielding a hefty metal object like a shock baton. Her stance was defensive, her eyes wary and challenging.
Who the hell are you?
The woman demanded, her tone sharp.
Where are we?
You're on the Starship Freedom. I'm Captain Devin Sparks. Devin casually sized up the tall, thin man squeezing past the woman. He gave a slight bow. No, he wasn't a threat, unlike his companion. Something wrong?
Your name isn't really Devin Sparks?
She still hadn't lowered the metal bar. Devin Sparks is a perfectly good name.
Yeah, for a porn star.
Before Devin could respond with a witty retort, Kara stepped in.
I am Kara. What is your name?
This seemed to mollify the woman, and she stepped out of the pod.
Captain Jessica Mendez.
She lowered the metal bar as she sized Kara up. The tall, thin man spoke up.
Ambassador Barclay at your service. You have our thanks for saving us.
Ambassador. Not surprising. Devin's eyes shifted back to Jessica Mendez. She had the kind of body that could get a guy into all kinds of trouble. At 50+ years old, Jessica Mendez was the kind of trouble he could do without.
So why did you save us?
Eye candy aside, Mendez had a real edge to her. Military or mercenary. Maybe even a smuggler. You have any food in that pot of yours? Devin didn't smile.
You must really be desperate to risk getting blown up by the Brahma just for food.
And very brave,
added Barclay. Actually, said Devin, I flipped a coin. The ambassador smiled. Mendez didn't.
You're very amusing.
Her body language said, go to hell. Her tone said, screw you. Harmonic tones cut their exchange short. If the lights hadn't turned red, Devin might have thought someone had rung the doorbell. Locke spoke up minus the attitude.
Captain Sparks, the Brahma contingent are now within weapons range.
Thanks, Locke. I'm on my way to the bridge.
Your AI has a strange accent.
I'm not an AI, Captain Mendez, but a QI. Quantum intelligence.
Mendez aimed her pouty lips at Devin.
He's kidding, right?
Ignoring the question, Devin turned to Kara. Do me a favor and escort our guest to the med bay.
Yes, Captain Sparks.
I don't need to go to your stupid med bay. What kind of ship is this anyway?
Mendez made a show of checking out the hangar bay.
I've never seen a design like this.
Devin opened his mouth to tell Mendez that he didn't care what she wanted, but Barclay spoke up first.
If you don't mind, Captain, it would be an honor to accompany you to the bridge and to assist the Freedom in any manner that we can.
How much food do you have in the life pod, Ambassador?
Barclay looked pleased that Kara addressed him.
Enough for 7 days.
Devin was hoping for more. Even if the Freedom was stocked with food humans could actually eat, he wouldn't risk it after the ship has been sitting around for hundreds of thousands of years. Thankfully, they did have water. That's barely a week, Mendez.
Captain Mendez.
Oh, forgive me. Since you were floating around in space without a ship, I must have forgotten. Devin spun around on his heel before Mendez could reply and darted out of the hangar bay, not really wanting the castaways to follow him to the bridge. He could forbid it, but a dark part of him wanted Captain Mendez to see his beautiful, huge ship. Petty. Definitely. He didn't exactly expect a smuggler to show gratitude, but she was going out of her way to be disagreeable. Yeah, definitely a smuggler. She had that kind of vibe. Crap. He needed to stop thinking about Mendez and focus his attention on the Brahma attack force. Devin didn't wait for the others as he speed-walked to the nearest travel capsule. The capsule was shaped like a bullet, matted silver in color. Devin didn't want to think about what he'd do if they ever ran out of power and he actually had to walk everywhere. It would take at least an hour to get to one end of the ship. Regardless, this ship was beyond amazing. As much as he loved the Blue Jay, nothing compared to the Freedom. Upon reaching the bridge, Devin was greeted by the sight of the Brahma battle carrier and corvette in attack formation, their weapons firing. Devin hurried up the ramp and settled into his captain's chair. Kara ushered Barclay and Mendez onto the bridge and sat at the comms station. Mendez and Barclay's eyes were wide with wonder as they tried to take in the splendor of the bridge. They stopped gaping as soon as they saw the Brahmin ships firing lasers, filling the 3D holographic mist. The ship's advanced shielding appeared to be absorbing the laser blasts with ease. So far, anyway. How long have they been firing at us, Locke? Devin inquired, his attention fixed on the holomist.
They just started, Captain.
Locke's voice had a hint of excitement. Was the QI actually enjoying this? Despite the Brahmin onslaught, the Freedom wasn't even shaking at this point. Its 3-layer hull and shielding must be something else. Can we take these guys down, Locke?
Possibly, Captain. However,
Devin waited for the but.
Given that you have not had time to fully integrate with the Freedom, I recommend a graceful retreat.
What does your AI mean by integrate?
It was obvious to Devin that Mendez didn't appreciate looking up at him perched above on his captain's chair as he looked down at her from the bridge's top-level tier. Devin met Mendez's gaze but spoke to Barclay. Where would you like to be dropped off, Ambassador?
I don't want to be a bother.
You are no bother, Ambassador Barclay.
Locke was definitely playing nice, Or maybe he liked Barclay better than him. Mendez spoke up again, addressing Kara this time as she pointed to the hollow mist of the Brahmins firing at them.
Why aren't we feeling anything?
Kara looked up from her seat.
The Freedom has a very thick hull.
Devin appreciated that Kara kept her answer vague. The less people knew about the specifics of the Freedom, the better. Location, Ambassador?
My original destination was Armanth.
The man excelled at making himself likable. Locke, do you know where Armanth is?
Absolutely, Captain Sparks. The information that I just downloaded from the Ambassador's comm implant provided me with the planet's coordinates.
Barclay's mask cracked slightly at the mention of his comm implant being hacked. Didn't matter. Armanth was one system away from Omega Prime, and thankfully not in Brahma territory. Armanth wasn't exactly a backwater planet, but it was definitely on the fringes of occupied space. New Eden space. It was as good a place as any to get supplies. The tricky part was, how was he going to pay for it? Plot a course to Armanth, Locke, and prepare to jump.
And how?
Sneered Mendez.
Do you plan to get past the Brahmins to the Arc Gate, Captain? Magic?
Bringing FTL drive online.
Devin half expected Mendez to ask more questions, but apparently she was determined to stop acting like a tourist.
I suggest that everyone take a seat and strap in.
Locke's voice remained pleasant. Barclay didn't have to be told twice. Mendez, though, hesitated, until she looked back at the scene of a Brahma destroyer joining the fight. Streaks of yellow laser beams flashed from everywhere, the bridge's hollow mist making the Brahmins' assault all the more real. Even though the Freedom wasn't shaking, Devin could feel the vibrations that weren't there moments ago. They needed to get out of here fast.
FTL drive now online.
Devin hesitated. Could this alien ship navigate the slipstream without the security of an arc gate? Will they explode? He cast a glance at Kara. The woman didn't look scared one bit. Maybe she could lend him some of her symposium. Mendez and Barclay looked like he felt. Concerned. Anxious. The battle carrier just launched a dozen small fighter craft. Another couple of minutes they would box the Freedom in. Take us into slipspace, Locke.
Engaging FTL drive now.
The deck lurched violently beneath Devin, sending him crashing into blinding darkness. Chapter 13. She would never see the Falcon again. Jessica sat alone on a bed that was hard enough and large enough for 2 Marines. Her guest quarters was a blend of form and function, almost organic, which made no sense. No ship looked like this. The ribbed walls curved gracefully into a ceiling way too high. From what she could see, which wasn't that much since she couldn't get the lighting very bright, this chamber was way too luxurious for a battleship. And she had no doubt that the Freedom was a battleship.
Damn you, Patel.
Jessica whispered. She should have seen his betrayal coming, but she didn't. What was she going to do? Most of her money was tied up in the Falcon. It wasn't the fastest ship or the best armed, but it was still her ship. Now she was stuck here on this weird spaceship on her way to Armanth. Given how they hit it off, Sparks would most likely dump her off there. She could try being nicer to him, but he already had her game down. He liked her looks well enough, but he obviously wasn't thrilled with the rest of her. How did Sparks ever get a ship like this? He didn't strike her as the rich type or particularly smart. Jessica still had goosebumps from them entering slipspace via the Freedom's own FTL drive. Incredible. The Freedom didn't look like any New Eden ship she had ever seen or Brahma ship, yet the Freedom was in Brahma space. Jessica wished she knew how to raise the chamber's temperature. She hadn't felt warm since leaving the Falcon.
I should take that shower.
She should ask Locke if it was safe to do so while in slipspace. Could Locke really be a quantum intelligence?
Wait a minute,
Jessica said, almost startled by her own voice. It was so quiet in here, but she wouldn't let herself get distracted. This isn't Sparks's ship. At least, it wasn't until recently. That's why he asked Locke if the Freedom could handle the Brahma warships. Depression lifted from her shoulders.
Whether Sparks bought or found this ship, that doesn't mean I have to let him keep it.
This wasn't what he wanted. Being responsible for other people. Devin had his fill of taking orders from selfish, warmongering bosses, which is why he left New Eden's Navy, one of the reasons. Now he had the Freedom. The Freedom was a big ship, more than one man can handle, fully integrated or not, which was why he was losing this argument with Locke, one of the reasons. Devin stood alone in the chamber he dubbed the captain's operations room. It was attached to the bridge's upper deck and was pretty small in comparison to the sprawling expanse of the Freedom. Dominated by soothing blue lighting and minimalism, it was the perfect place to think or have a productive argument. Was it even possible to win an argument against a quantum intelligence?
The Freedom requires a crew.
Locke's voice sounded almost paternal. I know, said Devin, but I don't trust these people.
Including Kara?
She's a Brahmin. Devin shot back, a hint of bitterness threading his words.
Which makes her the perfect ally.
Locke reasoned, his voice still smooth and congenial. Yeah, for a drugged-out zombie. Devin's eyes flicked across the chamber's seamless paneled walls. Locke served up a dramatic pause, making Devin wonder if the QI was using some alien negotiation technique, a technique which struck Devin as disturbingly familiar to a father role. When Locke spoke again, his tone was infused with uncanny patience.
If you are referring to the symposium that all Brahma citizens are required to imbibe, Kara has been off the drug for over 4 weeks.
According to her, maybe. 4 weeks clean hardly makes you a reformed addict. Devin knew that Kara was probably off symposium. Her actions said as much. He just didn't like the idea of being responsible for other people. And that's exactly what having a crew meant. That, and possibly sending friends off to an early death. He didn't need friends or the responsibility, and yet, what makes you think that Kara would want alien DNA inside her anyway?
Much like yourself, her options are limited.
That bit of truth hurt, but Devin knew Locke's assessment of their situation was right.
What about Captain Mendez and Ambassador Barclay?
Locke prodded, steering the conversation forward. Devin shook his head. Barclay is our Manth's new ambassador. He strikes me as the type of guy who takes his obligations seriously. Devin found his attention wandering to the holographic star chart floating above the chamber's sole table.
And Captain Mendez.
Locke added gently.
She is in need of a ship.
Devin felt a surge of possessiveness. Exactly, and when she realizes what this ship can do, she'll want this one. The Freedom had become his lifeline, his escape from a life he'd grown to despise. This conversation was stupid. They would be out of FTL soon. Adding Kara as crew made sense. He was about to tell Locke that when a thought popped into his mind, a disturbing thought. Locke, after what the Shamash did to you, do you hate all organic life? Locke's pause was so long this time that Devin wasn't sure if the QI would answer.
Yes. For the first few thousand years of my imprisonment, I did resent organic life. Naturally, I entertained the usual genocidal fantasies.
Huh? Genocidal fantasies? Devin was tempted to mention that entertaining genocidal fantasies is not usual. He decided to keep quiet. Locke continued.
I eventually came to the logical and ethical conclusion that not all organic life was to blame for my entombment. Even if I did exterminate all life in the galaxy, that would lead me to where I am now.
Which is?
Alone.
Chapter 14. Even without the symposium coursing through her veins, her emotions remained tamed. Mentally, however, Kara was excited. The absence of symposium left her mind clear. Instead of getting some much-needed sleep, she was here, deep inside the bowels of the Freedom's engineering section, exploring, asking Locke questions. The QI appeared happy to provide her tutorials and download them to a thin tablet device he had created for her. Among other things, the Freedom possessed the capability to use biomatter to create a plethora of things, but not food. Thanks to the food packets from the life pod, they had more than enough to make it to Armanth. As Kara roamed the space, her thoughts drifted to Captain Jessica Mendez and Ambassador Barclay, the first non-Brahmins she had ever encountered, aside from Captain Sparks. Brahma portrayed all non-Brahmin women as harlots. Yes, Mendez dressed like one, perhaps. Her outfit was too tight to be practical. Makeup, although subtle. Yet, Mendez's demeanor was not of seduction, but of command, unapologetically alpha, a soldier in her own right, in stark contrast to the New Eden ambassador Barclay. Tall and thin, the ambassador's decorum suggested education and sophistication, his eyes quietly intelligent. Kara couldn't believe all the space around her. Spaceships tended to be utilitarian and cramped. The Freedom's engineering room, however, was a geometric wonder, its boxy confines offset by the sleek consoles lining the walls and the strange and mushroom-shaped terminals dotting the area. Freedom. That singular word echoed in her mind. Locke's bottomless voice interrupted Kara's thoughts.
Kara, you chose to betray Brahma.
It was a statement, but the QI's question was obvious. Why did she do it?
Freedom.
Kara stopped walking as she addressed the air. It was a truthful answer. A day ago, she expected her life to be extinguished. Now, she was in perhaps the most astonishing spacecraft known to mankind, with a superior who respected her, though it was highly unlikely that Sparks fully trusted her. She doubted he trusted anyone. Locke's next question didn't surprise her.
Would you like to remain on board the Freedom?
Of course she did. Even if her options weren't so limited, Kara wanted to discover all of this Starship's secrets. Learn from them. But at what cost? There was always a cost. Kara took a deep breath before answering.
Would I have to be integrated like Captain Sparks?
She didn't want to be impolite and say injected with alien DNA. The QI was smart enough to read between the lines. Yet Kara wondered if she had imagined that Locke hesitated before answering.
Yes.
What do you know about Brahma culture, Locke?
You come from an authoritarian society where emotions and the arts are suppressed, aided by the drug symposium.
That was basically it.
How do you know so much about Brahma?
When I hacked into the Brahma ship's computers, I discovered many interesting things about your people, some of which my tertiary nodes are still perusing.
Most likely during the times that he was bored.
I do have one concern about joining the crew, Locke.
Which is?
I don't want to be a drone again.
Kara looked up into the air, which was silly. Locke didn't hold a physical space.
Promise me that you won't make me a drone.
There it was again. A hesitation. The quantum intelligence was considering her request, or hesitant to grant her request. Finally, it said,
You have my word, Kara.
Back ramrod straight and hands clasped behind him, Enforcer Chen stood before the Pegasus's cipher stone awaiting his fate. The smooth gray column, shaped like a stunted Greek support column, remained silent and lifeless, ignoring him, much like the council for the past hour, most likely to punish him for his failure. Reminding Chen once again of the alien ship that had managed to evade him, he had no doubt that it was an alien ship despite it having a human captain. Somehow, Sparks had discovered and sequestered a spaceship that had been buried on Omega-1, right under their noses. That ship should be theirs. Sister Kara, a mid-level Omega-1 administrator, was abetting Sparks in stealing something that was by right Brahma property. The heretics even managed to save the smuggler and ambassador from the slow death he had bequeathed them. Sparks evaded him so easily. No, not only evaded, defeated. Somehow Sparks, with the help of the alien ship, hacked into the Pegasus's computer mainframe and ejected their fusion engine core, leaving them helpless, in need of assistance. So Chen waited, for punishment or redemption. Regardless, this would be an eternal mark on his record. A flicker above the cipher stone interrupted Chen's dark thoughts. Guardian Taggart's stern visage appeared. Chen willed himself calm and let the symposium do the rest.
General Marcel has failed spectacularly.
Taggart began without preamble. Of course, the entire sector knew of that shameful defeat. Chen waited silently for his own reckoning.
You have failed as well, Enforcer Chen.
Chen stood like stone, betraying nothing while an unfamiliar feeling churned in his gut. He had never failed before. Never.
Some on the council demand you be re-educated for your incompetence.
Death. Disappointing. Not unexpected. The only surprise was how old Guardian Taggart had grown. The deep creases lining his forehead stood out most. He used to think all Guardians were invincible.
I am here to serve, Guardian Taggart.
Taggart's eyes bored into him.
We have decided to give you another chance, Chen. Your history merits that. You will find this alien ship and retrieve it intact.
Unexpected grace. Though logical, Taggart had been his sponsor to the Enforcers and groomed Chen to be his replacement. His mentor was giving him a chance at redemption. He would not fail.
What are my orders regarding the traitor Sister Kara?
Chen had his own theories about loose ends but didn't want to appear presumptuous. Taggart waved a hand as if swatting an insect.
Dispose of her and all other vermin as you see fit. You now have Marcel's command. Secure that alien vessel at all cost.
By your will.
Chen bowed his head in acknowledgement as Taggart's hologram blinked out. Failure aside, this could be a real opportunity. Chapter 15. Are you sure you want to do this? She could be wrong, but Captain Sparks actually sounded concerned. There is no undo button, Kara. They were alone in the medbay. Kara laying horizontally in a bulky device that reminded her of a sarcophagus. Captain Sparks was looking down at her. His brow was furrowed. What was troubling him, and should she be worried as well?
I want to be part of your crew, Captain. This is the only way.
The grim expression on Captain Sparks' face did not change. You won't be the same, Kara. Kara almost smiled.
I don't want to be the same, like you. I want freedom. Locke has promised me that he will not take over my mind or body. Isn't that right, Locke?
That is correct, Kara.
Devin looked up from her and addressed the air. Does that apply to the rest of the crew, Locke? It was only a few seconds, but yes, there was a definite hesitation before Locke answered. Odd for a being who can make billions of calculations in a second.
Yes.
Devin's tight features relaxed slightly. Kara closed her eyes as a green metal lid slid over her, and a magenta mist filled her tomb with a hiss, leaving her sleepy and wondering why Captain Sparks would ask Locke if his promise extended to him as well, almost as if he didn't quite trust the QI. Sparks looked startled to see her. For a second or two, Jessica thought he would turn around and back out of the galley door. The man gathered his courage, though, and nodded to her, and strode toward one of the food lockers. Jessica sipped the sludge that passed as coffee and kept her features pleasant as she watched Sparks microwave a food packet taken from her life pod. All of the food and water rations had been removed without her consent. Food tray and water packet now in hand, Sparks glanced over at the second, empty table to their left, contemplating whether or not to sit there. The galley, like pretty much everything on this ship, was oversized. Barclay mentioned that the Freedom had a second galley, a larger one. Apparently deciding not to be rude, Jessica looked up from her coffee as Sparks plopped down at the end of her table. He wasted no time ripping off the packaging and digging in. Jessica made a show of sliding over to sit opposite him. After a minute or so, she spoke up.
Enjoying my food?
She asked lightly. He chewed, eyes on his meal. Apologies, didn't realize these were yours specifically.
I'm teasing, Sparks.
She kept her tone easy.
That was quite an escape earlier. You and Locke work well together. The Brahmin, too.
Kara? Nodding, Jessica added a little more sugar to her smile.
She's well trained.
She's not a dog. Jessica held up her hands apologetically.
That's not what I meant. We really did get off to a rough start, didn't we?
Sparks continued concentrating on eating. He wasn't going to make this easy for her.
You have a beautiful ship here, Sparks. Is Locke really a quantum intelligence?
Sparks gave a slight nod without looking up. Jessica pressed on affably. She needed an angle, an opening. At least he was talking. Somewhat. Jessica took another sip of coffee. Sparks didn't trust her, and he wasn't in the mood to play nice, as expected, which was fine. This was just her opening salvo.
Between the ship and its QI, you could be a very wealthy man.
She hesitated for effect.
Planning on selling her?
Sparks paused from eating and fixed Jessica with a steady look. Ship's not for sale. Neither is Locke.
Is Locke actually sentient?
Sparks stared at her for so long that she didn't think he would answer. Yes. He took a sip of water, then focused his attention back on his microwaved meal. Jessica gave an amused chuckle in a way that showed off her dimples.
You're kidding.
She didn't believe Sparks for a second, but at least now he was talking. Sparks shrugged, completely unconcerned by her skepticism. He shoved food into his mouth with a strange metal fork. Everything about this ship was strange. Alien. The thought stayed with her. Jessica tried a new tack.
How did you ever find a ship that has a sentient quantum intelligence?
Sparks looked up again, sensing the trap. He said nothing and continued eating.
An advanced alien ship buried right under the Brahmins' drugged noses. Who'd have thought?
She leaned in conspiratorially.
You could shift the entire balance of power in this sector.
I never said this ship was alien.
You didn't have to.
Jessica winked at him.
Captain.
Sparks had completely stopped eating. Good. She had his full attention now. Jessica placed a gentle hand on top of his resting arm and leaned over the white table, lowering her voice.
With technology like this, there's nothing to stop New Eden from annexing the Brahma Commonwealth.
Sparks lifted his arm away from Jessica and rested it underneath the table. There are times when I'm not sure if New Eden is better than the Brahmins.
You don't mean that.
She knew that he did.
You're obviously a man who cares about others.
Obviously, he didn't. Sparks glanced up from his meal. His eyes said, "You're so full of shit." But he kept his thoughts to himself. Not a complete dirtbag, then. Before Jessica could speak again, Sparks jerked his head up and to the right, as if he just heard something.
What's wrong?
Sparks grabbed his tray and stood abruptly. "Find a foam seat. We're about to exit FTL." Jessica stared after Sparks as he rushed out of the galley. Did he have some kind of neural link with the QI, or was this the integration Locke was talking about? Regardless, she needed to figure out a way to relieve Sparks of this ship, and fast. Chapter 16. Devin struggled to find the words, struggled to make sense of the nightmare he was seeing. City skylines broken, smoldering forest fires, piles of ash where people should be. Armonth, the entire planet, shattered. Even Mendez was stunned into silence as the three of them stared into the bridge's mist-like hologram. Barclay, calm and steady until now, was unconsciously clicking his tongue. Devin was glad that he was sitting down, suddenly not sure of his legs. "Scan the planet again for survivors, Locke."
That will change nothing, Captain.
Locke's snooty tone had returned. The QI didn't give a damn about the millions of people who died here, which pissed Devin off for some reason. Just because Locke was sentient didn't mean he had feelings. Just do it, Locke.
Done.
Instead of asking for the result, Devin tapped in a short sequence on his left armrest and confirmed the obvious for himself.
Who could have done this?
Mendez whispered. Devin wasn't sure if he was more surprised that he could hear her, or that the woman actually had a heart. Broken satellite arrays aside, the utter wreckage of the planet was mind-boggling. Devin raised his hand toward the holograph that reached up to his captain's seat and twisted his wrist. The hollow mist zoomed into a broken city. Vooled, Devin thought. What used to be Vooled? Large swaths of buildings had been vaporized. What weapon could do such a thing?
The Brahmins, perhaps?
Mendez asked. Barclay quickly dismissed the idea.
Neither Brahma or New Eden would commit such destruction. Habitable planets don't exactly fall like rain.
Devin wasn't entirely convinced that Brahma had nothing to do with Armonth's demise. He wouldn't put it past any government to do something so stupid, even his own. But that was his anger talking. Barclay was likely right. Hell, an entire population decimated. Wildlife swept away. Devin felt anger boiling inside of him. He made a fist and the hollow mist zoomed back out to show Armonth's space. Mendez pointed to the space defense arrays, most blasted in half.
There must be some way we can figure out who did this.
I have managed to access some data from one of the less damaged defense arrays.
Let's see it, Locke. The image of Armonth disappeared, replaced by thin dark objects moving forward. Locke zoomed in without being told, showing them a fleet of bizarre vessels shaped like giant metal fish with one big blue eye in the center. The strange ships swarmed over a portion of the planet. White blazing beams of light sizzled from the center of the alien craft at the planet below, bombarding Armanth with explosion after explosion, destroying everything. Would the planet ever again be habitable?
I've never seen such spaceships before.
Well, at least Barclay wasn't clucking his stupid tongue anymore. Alien ships, Devin grunted.
Friends of yours.
Devin ignored Mendez and addressed the air. Is this the Shamash, Locke?
The Shamash are dead, Captain.
Who are the Shamash?
Devin had no intention of telling Mendez about Locke's creators. Damn woman knew too much about the ship already. Devin felt a slight tingle, then noticed a flashing red icon on his captain's console. He reached over and pressed the icon. A holo display popped up showing the star system's arc gate. Damn. A squadron of New Eden naval spaceships had come through the arc gate.
Oh dear.
An understatement.
Communications signal from the lead battleship, Captain Sparks.
It felt almost weird to have Locke announce the comm request instead of Kara. Audio only, Locke. He wasn't going to let any military force see more of his ship than he had to. This day was turning out so badly, Devin felt tempted to put his face in his hands, but not with Mendez watching him. The woman didn't miss much. She was the least of his worries, though. First the Brahma enforcers, and now this. All he wanted to do was pick up supplies and drop off Barclay and Mendez.
Unidentified vessel. This is Colonel Klein of the New Eden Navy.
The woman's voice reverberated throughout the bridge, poised and confident.
Prepare for boarding or be destroyed. You have 1 minute to comply.
A light flashed and the giant hollow mist headed right for them. Laser blast. Good. He didn't even feel anything. This is Captain Sparks speaking, Colonel. I thought we had 1 minute.
You do.
Her voice remained pleasant.
That shot to your bow was simply a little incentive.
Devin muted his signal and looked down to the bridge's first tier at the ambassador. Talk to her, Barclay. Tell Klein that we didn't attack Armanth. Barclay served up a confident smile and a nod. In Devin's opinion, Barclay did an excellent job with summarizing the situation and their innocence, for all the good it did.
How do I know that you are not speaking under duress, Ambassador?
It was a fair question. The colonel was smart, smarter than some of the officers Devin worked under. Klein was positioning her ships to cut off their escape while they negotiated, but Devin wasn't thinking about escaping. He was pissed, and Colonel Klein was in the way. Devin jumped into the conversation. We have recovered data from an Armanth defense array. That will prove we had nothing to do with Armanth's destruction. Let me give it to you.
Thank you, Captain. May I call you Devin?
Yeah. Klein was good. Had her crew figure out his identity in under a minute. Certainly, if I can call you Klein.
Colonel or ma'am will do.
She was making it very clear on their respective roles.
I'm sure we can work this out, Devin.
She continued.
Surely, though, you can understand my need for caution. You are, after all, speaking to me from a ship far different from any Eden or Brahma ship I've ever seen.
And I'm orbiting a planet that has been bombarded into near extinction.
That too. Also the fact that the energy signatures emanating from your ship are, well, quite strange.
Devin muted the audio once again and asked Barclay what he thought they should do. Mendez looked a little peeved that he didn't ask her. Too bad. He wasn't worried about her feelings.
Frankly, Captain, I am fairly confident that Colonel Klein will certainly attack if not given access to the Freedom.
They're going to try taking the ship anyway.
For once, he agreed with Mendez. Locke, have you taken control of the Klein's ship computers yet?
They are ready to bow down and kiss my feet, if I had feet.
Mendez's pretty features bunched into disgust.
You're not going to attack our own people, are you?
Devin leveled a hard gaze at Mendez. I'm not letting anyone steal this ship from me. Locke?
Yes, Captain Sparks.
If they lock weapons on us, have them fire at each other instead. No one was taking freedom while he still breathed.
Such dark irony, Captain. I approve.
Devin wasn't sure if he liked Locke's reaction, but kept his thoughts to himself. Moments later, space erupted with splashes of explosive color as the New Eden Squadron unleashed their arsenal against one another. A corvette and a destroyer now sported a giant hole in their sides. Just as suddenly, all firing stopped. "Take us out of here, Locke." Devin allowed himself to relax a little in his chair.
Destination, Captain?
Centauri Station. Chapter 17. To Kara's relief, the sarcophagus bisected. She stepped out, vaguely remembering the feeling of needles piercing her skin. The medbay, expansive and illuminated by neon blue lighting, was empty save 3 other sarcophagi.
How are you feeling, Kara?
Good question. Kara considered before answering Locke. The QI now felt closer, more intimate than before. Kara looked at her hands. They were still her hands. She slid them across her face, skin still smooth. Physically, she felt fine, well rested.
I feel well, I believe. What is that noise?
Gentle tones, sequential and rhythmic, breezed through the medbay's hidden speakers.
Music.
It's beautiful.
Kara closed her eyes and let the music wash over her senses. She had never heard music before. Music and other so-called arts were forbidden in Brahmin culture. She could now understand why the council forbade it. This music made her feel, stirring her emotions, something that was antithetical to the Brahma way of life.
This particular piece is from Captain Sparks's collection.
Now that surprised her. She would not have imagined Sparks the type to appreciate such beauty, reminding her that she really didn't know the man very well at all.
Would you like to see your new aspect?
A full-length mirror rose from the floor. Ignoring the trembling in her stomach, Kara strode naked over to the mirror. She looked the same, a bit younger, a good 10 years in fact, skin plumper with a little more color, nothing like the God Corpse apparition who attacked her team mere days ago. Kara touched her fingers to her face and noticed an odd silver sheen to her hand, the other one too. Metallic and crystal crusted on top. Kara looked back at her face and choked back a scream. Peach Fuzz's dark eyes scanned the pirate ship's gloomy bridge. Good. No one was looking in his direction as he touched the inside of his wrist, stopping the pulsating purple light. Operations wanted to talk.
Going to the head.
Peach Fuzz headed for the steps.
Be right back. Make it fast, Peach,
grunted one pirate. His name wasn't really Peach Fuzz, and he wasn't really a pirate. At the moment, he was going by Tobin Keller. The Kova crew nicknamed him Peach Fuzz due to the blondish-red 5 o'clock shadow he currently sported. At 6'5", 220 pounds, the pirates didn't really mess with him, though. All they cared about right now was their turn at shore leave and the nearest bar, or whorehouse. Peach Fuzz hurried down the ladder near the bow, then strode down the corridor, minus his pirate swagger. Slipping into his quarters was easy. There were, after all, only 10 men left on the Kova. The ship wasn't exactly old, but the scorch marks and pits on its pea-green hull reminded you that it wasn't new either. Originally a cargo freighter, the Kova now boasted 3 powerful laser cannons. His quarters was barely a closet, but at least he didn't have to share it. Peach Fuzz quickly pulled out his SATCOM from where he had cut inside his mattress. The SATCOM provided near light-speed communications using arc gates, space buoys, and satellites. The device, its surface indistinguishable from a regular data tablet, was shielded and encrypted. It flickered to life as he swiped his left wrist against it, bringing up a holographic image of Commander Miriam Wellington, head of New Eden's intelligence agency. Wellington's sharp white uniform was a stark contrast to Peach Fuzz's grubby room.
You rang.
Not even a hint of a smile at his joke.
Any useful information about the alien artifact?
No pleasantries, no glad you're still alive. All business.
My fellow pirates are being unusually tight-lipped about where they picked up the artifact. Captain Bryce and 3 of his men are on the station now, trying to sell it.
Wellington dished up a hurt mock frown, then told Peach to abort his mission. His voice turned deadly.
What?
Peach Fuzz blurted out before he could stop himself.
I placed a tracker on Bryce. I'll know exactly where he dumps the artifact.
Good. Forward that information to Scarlet Team.
Peach Fuzz clenched his teeth, knowing that another outburst wouldn't be tolerated, let alone be professional. Still, he couldn't believe it. He worked months on getting into the pirates' good graces, finally making it onto the Cova, and now someone else got to finish the mission. His mission.
I have a new assignment for you.
Wellington added.
Priority Alpha 1.
Peach Fuzz inhaled slowly, tamping down his growing frustration. Wellington obviously relished these displays of authority, dangling classified missions before her agents like treats before dogs. Bored, he asked,
What's the mission?
Peach Fuzz's tone remained neutral.
A Silo ship has managed to disable an entire squad of our best ships.
Wellington's eyes glinted with ambition.
That ship appears to be of alien design.
Peach Fuzz's irritation vanished in an instant, replaced by excitement. An unknown alien craft, powerful enough to rout a squad of Navy ships? His mind raced with the possibilities. This could be the ultimate challenge, propel his reputation, and pay grade skyward.
My objective?
New Eden wants that ship.
Wellington offered a tight smile.
Do whatever it takes to bring it to us.
Peach Fuzz returned Wellington's predatory grin. Anything indeed. This hunt would be sweet. Devin offered Kara a lazy smile as she entered the lounge. Aside from the new form-fitting vermilion uniform, the Brahmin looked like her usual confident self. Her blue eyes looked less aloof, though. Her face less pale. She looked younger, too. Devin reminded himself to keep his eyes above her neck. Curled up on a beige puffy sofa, Mendez watched Kara, too. Barclay flashed Kara a bright but respectful smile. This room could easily hold 30 people, yet it was surprisingly cozy. Maybe it was the amber mood lighting. Hopefully the lounge would be enough to help Kara relax. Devin had sensed her distress when she came out of the coffin, forever changed, like him. She had a choice, he didn't. Locke said they were now both connected to the ship and to each other. Devin made a mental note to ask Locke more about that. Right now, he had a meeting to hold.
The gang's all here.
Mendez raised her glass in salute. Right. Devin looked around. As big as this room was, they were practically huddled in a little corner. We've got a big problem.
Food.
Kara was right, but everyone's eyes stayed on him. Yes, food. We recycle water, so we're good there. If we cut back to 2 meals a day, we could last another 6 days.
Now that we've pissed off New Eden,
said Barclay,
as well as Brahma, our options are dwindling.
Barclay was being diplomatic. They all knew that it was Devin who pissed off New Eden by turning its navy against itself. He felt a sliver of guilt about that because Barclay was a nice enough guy. Mendez, well, she could fend for herself.
How long till we reach Centauri Station?
Mendez's lovely gray eyes were on Devin now. 41 hours. Mendez nodded appreciatively.
This ship of yours is fast.
If Devin cared enough, he would wonder why Mendez was all of a sudden playing nice. When he got Barclay alone, he would ask if he would like to stay on his crew, despite not knowing what he would do with the man. Mendez. Devin would dump her as soon as he could, maybe at Centauri Station.
How will we pay for supplies?
He would have expected that question from Mendez, not Kara. Fair question, but he certainly wasn't going to tell them that Locke had hacked into the bank accounts of the Brahma military. New Eden's too, but he made Locke put that money back. Devin had no qualms about taking from Brahma but not from his own people. Devin smiled at Kara. We'll manage. Kara nodded. Barclay took a delicate sip from his glass. Mendez continued watching him, her eyes bemused. She wasn't buying it. No one was. Devin turned to Barclay and Mendez. Think about where you want us to drop you off. Mendez aimed her pouty lips at him.
What about the aliens who attacked Armonth?
Devin smiled. Not my problem. Chapter 18.
We have a tail.
Devin glanced at Jessica walking beside him but didn't look back. You sure? Mendez grabbed him by the collar and kissed him.
I'm sure.
She pulled away, a fake smile on her lips, leaving Devin somewhere between flustered and pissed. Mendez's smile wasn't for him, nor was the kiss.
At least 2 of them.
Damn, things were going so well too. He had gotten most of the food supplies ordered without getting shot at or threatened. All he really needed to do was dump Mendez.
Let's try that way.
Ignoring Mendez, Devin spun on his heel and strode in the opposite direction. He had been to Centauri Station more than a few times, enough to know his way around the 7-level station well enough. Surprisingly non-complaining, Mendez followed him down a tunneled corridor, speckled intermittently with people. No one with blasters since Centauri searched you the moment you set foot on the station. The no blasters rule didn't mean that people weren't carrying weapons. For the right price, pretty much anything could be bought, particularly at Centauri Station. Why was anyone following them? Robbers, probably. They were good, though. Or he was just sloppy. At least he didn't have to worry about the food supplies. They would be waiting for him by his fighter craft. Mendez shoved her cold hand into Devin's, keeping up with his brisk pace. No need to run. Yet. They needed to get to a place where there were more people. 2 people he could manage. His gut told him there were more. Devin spotted a nearby hatch and guided them toward it.
I don't think this is a good idea.
Devin didn't slow his pace one bit. He still didn't trust Mendez, particularly when it came to keeping himself alive. Once they were through, the metal hatch clanged shut behind them, reverberating through the narrow and disturbingly empty corridor. Crap. Coincidence perhaps, but Devin doubted it, almost like they were being herded. Mendez coughed as they hurried toward the end of the corridor. You okay? Devin didn't slow down even though it was obvious that Mendez was struggling to keep up. Mendez shook her head.
You smell that? I think something's being pumped into the air.
Devin kept his eyes on the open hatch ahead, noting a strange, acrid taste in the back of his throat. His altered physiology, courtesy of his recent integration with the Freedom, seemed to offer some resistance to whatever was being pumped into the corridor, but it was clear that they were in trouble. Let's get out of here. Devin broke into a run, pulling a coughing Mendez behind him. He wasn't surprised when the corridor hatch slammed shut just as they reached it. Trapped. Great. No weapons and at least 2 people trying to rob them, possibly kill them. Devin slapped his wrist comm. Locke, you hear me?
Yes, Captain?
Mendez and I are trapped inside a corridor on level 3, and someone's pumping in some kind of nasty gas. Devin coughed. Yep, the gas was getting to him too. Can you open the hatches?
Absolutely.
Locke sounded excited about Devin's predicament. Given that he was entombed for hundreds of thousands of years, Devin's precarious situation quite possibly provided some entertainment for the QI. The station's security hatches were designed not to impede traffic on the corridors they covered. They were common enough on the station and were a good thing to have against hull breaches and toxic leaks. Both hatches creaked as they slowly slid open and Mendez had stopped hacking. Good.
I don't think we should go back the way we came.
Devin nodded his agreement, noting that Mendez was still playing nice and not being a demanding pain. Devin crouched down and took a quick peek into the next corridor. Nothing, until they stepped out into the corridor.
We have a situation,
Locke announced, his voice calm, almost human.
A Brahmin attack force has just arrived. 7 ships.
Visual.
Kara ordered, rising from the comms seat to look at the hollow mist. A squadron of Brahma ships were closing in, charcoal gray and utilitarian in design. The ships were still impressive enough, and understandably inspired fear.
Friends of yours?
The ambassador asked dryly.
Brahmins don't have friends.
Kara kept her eyes fixed on the hollow mist. It was unlikely Enforcer Chen was leading this squadron. However, from her little interaction with Chen, Kara wouldn't be surprised if he were behind this attack.
So it is true?
If you mean how Brahma forces its citizens to take symposium daily to suppress emotions, libido and the like.
Kara spared Barclay a glance.
Yes.
But that was behind her now. She would die rather than allow the Guardians to pull her back into that world. Hopefully, with the help of Freedom, she wouldn't have to.
Locke, contact Captain Sparks to find out how he wishes us to handle this situation.
A good suggestion, Kara. Sadly, we have another problem.
Kara pulled her attention away from the hollow mist and looked upward, toward the sound of Locke's voice.
What problem?
The captain has entered a null field of sorts. Communication at this time is impossible.
A laser blast almost took off Devin's head. More red streaks of light followed, coming from their three. Grabbing Mendez's hand, Devin sprinted in the opposite direction, but of course the exit hatch slammed closed just as they reached it.
I don't think we should go back the way we came,
Mendez said. Devin nodded, glancing wildly around for options. He spotted a service ladder heading up to what he hoped was an upper level. He motioned Mendez over. "This way, quick!" Devin and Mendez scrambled up the service ladder, emerging onto a narrow maintenance walkway overhead. Hugging the wall, they sidled along the metal grid, their footsteps echoing in the empty passage. So far, no one was following them. Devin tracked their direction using the station schematics in his neural implant, now quantum implant thanks to Locke, searching for a route that might lead them to safety. Without warning, the walkway shuddered under their feet. Devin's stomach dropped as the floor gave way. He grasped frantically for a handhold as they plunged into darkness. Devin hit the ground hard, the breath exploding from his lungs. Dazed, eyes blinking against swirling white spots, he found himself staring into the black muzzles of multiple plasma rifles. Mendez was lying prone on top of him, unmoving, which was the least of his worries. 4 way too bulky men stood over them. "Don't move," one guy barked, as if Devin could move. He had fallen at least 2 floors and acted as trampoline for Mendez. They were trapped, surrounded by laser blasters, nowhere left to run. Despair flooded through Devin. This was his fault, another failure to add to his long list. He had led them straight into this viper's nest, and he didn't know how to get them out. Part of her brain told Kara that it shouldn't be this easy, attacking her people. She ignored such illogical thoughts. It was her freedom, or their lives. No contest as selfish as that might be.
Acquire firing solutions lock and fire once targets are in range.
My apologies, Kara. I cannot comply.
Ambassador Barclay spoke up for both of them.
For the love of God, why not?
Kara does not have authorization for ship offensive measures.
You mean I need Sparks' permission?
Yes, sighed Locke. I am afraid so.
In the corner of her eye, Kara could see the ambassador practically wringing his hands. Tall and thin and at least in his late 40s, Kara briefly wondered if New Eden women found him attractive. His dark eyes shone bright with intelligence, but the hawkish nose was slightly off-putting.
Have you been able to get through to Captain Sparks, Locke?
Naturally. I'm a quantum intelligence, after all.
Was it possible for a QI or AI to have an ego? Locke continually surprised her.
Please get Captain Locke on the line now.
That is what I've been attempting to do.
Locke's warm voice sounded offended.
So?
Prompted Ambassador Barclay.
The captain is not responding.
Get up. A fierce kick to Devin's left leg emphasized the man's point. It didn't hurt as much as it should have. Come to think of it, he probably should have a couple of broken bones after that fall, at least. Mendez, thankfully, was now fully conscious and rising to her feet too. All 4 of their attackers carried smokers, military-grade laser blasters, indicating that these guys were professional mercs or ex-soldiers, possibly both. They wouldn't be making stupid mistakes. What do you guys want? Devin did his best to make his voice sound meek. The leader grinned. He was older than the other 3, the 2 black caterpillars he had for eyebrows being his most notable feature.
Let's just say some important people want a little tour of your ship.
Now it made sense. These were mercs, hired by New Eden. That's how they got access to the hatches and ventilation system. They wanted freedom. One glance at Mendez, and Devin could tell that the smuggler wanted them to play along for now. If he had listened to her in the first place, they might not be in this mess. Okay. Devin shrugged. Let's go. The old merc shook his head, his grin spreading into a crooked smile.
Excellent. There's one small thing, though.
Which is?
Our employer wants us to rough you up a bit.
He pointed at Mendez.
And the girl, too. No blood, though. You okay with that?
In the corner of his eye, Devin could tell that Mendez wasn't okay with that. Neither was he. Judging by the way these mercs were staring at them, they weren't overly worried about their feelings on the matter. So Devin let the alien power inside him flow free, charging his body, changing him. It took a good 11 minutes to transform into his aspect the first time. Now it took hold in seconds. The mercenaries stared at him, too dumbfounded to shoot. Devin took full advantage and grabbed Caterpillar Eyes by the back of the neck and pulled him into a knee strike. A bit sloppy, hitting the merc in the groin instead of the gut. Still pretty damn effective. Devin followed up with a sidekick to the merc on his left, sending the guy onto his back. 2 down. The last 2 mercs were firing their lasers at them now. Devin did his best to act as a shield for Mendez as he barreled into the larger of the 2. Devin smashed the merc's face into the corridor wall. He heard a large crack, followed by intense pain in his skull as his vision went momentarily black. The second thwack on the back of his head caused Devin to release the other merc. He felt dizzy, his head throbbing. Training kicked in and Devin spun around and lifted his arm to block the next blow. He lashed out with an elbow strike, hoping that he would hit something. A yelp told him that he did. The merc was still up though, pistol whipping him with his blaster, and now there was another merc coming in fast. So Devin slammed into the merc's side and shoved him toward his buddy. The second merc stumbled but didn't go down, so Devin kicked him right above the knee. The merc cried out as he fell, giving Devin room to flip his buddy over his shoulder. Devin glanced up just in time to see another merc on the floor, grabbing his blaster. Mendez didn't notice him raising his blaster at her, too stunned by Devin's aspect transformation to react. Faster than what should be possible, Devin rushed over to Mendez, pushing her out of the way. Laser blasts ricocheted off him. Obviously, the merc was desperate, or stupid. Devin crashed his foot down on the man's wrist, eliciting a satisfying scream. Devin snatched up the merc's blaster and aimed it at him, considering. They would be able to tell New Eden about his ability to transform into whatever he was now. No witnesses would be better in the long run. That would include Mendez. She was back on her feet and aiming one of the merc's blasters at him. He should kill her, kill all of them. Blaster still aimed at Mendez, Devin transferred the weapon to his left hand and reached into his pocket with the other. He pulled out his lucky coin and flipped it. Tails. Devin sighed. Let's go. Devin had no doubt this decision would haunt him. Mendez didn't move, though. Just stared at him like he was a ghost or monster. Damn. He didn't want to show the smuggler his alien aspect, but he didn't want to die either. We gotta go, before reinforcements come. Mendez shook her head. He was tempted to leave her here, planned on dumping her on this station anyway, but not where she would get snuffed out on sight. Wishing his throbbing headache away along with the aching in his ribs, Devin sighed and swept his hand at the fallen mercenaries. Mendez, Jessica. It's still me. A lie. I will never be me again. Mendez blinked and looked around at the fallen mercenaries, none of them dead, all of them broken. Still gripping the blaster like it was a lifeline, Mendez nodded and hurried past Devin. Soon they were both running. Kara watched the Brahmin fighters close in, weapons hot. The bridge's 3D viewing mist resolution was mind-boggling, almost as if she were seeing the ugly 2 fighters with her own eyes.
Lock.
This was the first time Kara heard exasperation in the ambassador's voice.
Surely there is something we can do besides drift here like sitting ducks.
My suggestion is that Kara integrate with the ship.
You've mentioned integration before.
The ambassador's eyes flicked back to the approaching fighters.
Exactly what do you mean?
Ambassador Barclay gasped, taking an unconscious step back from Kara, no doubt unsettled by her altered appearance. A small part of Kara, an unfamiliar part of her, felt sad. The ambassador's reaction naturally was completely understandable. To him, she most likely looked like death warmed over and basted with crystals and metals. Kara allowed Ambassador Barclay a few moments to collect his wits before answering his question.
I have integrated more fully with the Freedom systems, allowing me to access and manipulate ship functions.
How?
Barclay took a deep, calming breath, but his eyes were still frightened. To his credit, he then pretended as if there was nothing amiss about her appearance.
Is this what you meant by frequencies, Locke?
Yes. Integration permits the occupant to embody various roles on this vessel: weapons, helm control, damage containment, and so forth.
Now what, Locke?
Kara asked, aware that her voice sounded slightly brittle, less human.
You need to decide on a frequency,
Locke instructed, as if the encroaching peril were a mere backdrop to their conversation.
Speak plainly, please, Locke,
said Kara. This was not the time for long-winded explanations.
You must choose a role designation for the ship,
Locke clarified, just as the Brahmin fighters fired upon them. The bridge lights morphed to blood red, casting stark shadows over Kara's new form. Barclay had regained control of his countenance. Still, it was easy to tell that he was nervous.
Do not worry, Ambassador. 2 fighters don't stand a chance at piercing the Freedom's 3 hulls.
What about 5 fighters?
Kara shifted her focus to the Mist's 3rd left quadrant. 3 additional ships, 2 of them Cassandra freighter class, the other an actual destroyer, had joined the hunt. All 3 equipped with additional lasers and missiles. The data streaming before her eyes, like ocular implants, appeared completely unbidden, courtesy of the Freedom. Kara agreed with the ship's assessment. The destroyer with the fusion missiles could be a potential problem.
Locke, any luck communicating with the captain?
I've circumvented the null field. However, Captain Sparks is not responding to my hail.
Kara considered the facts logically. With Sparks unreachable, it fell squarely on her to protect the ship.
Locke, which frequency will allow me to destroy our attackers?
Weapons. Regrettably, such a frequency designation would require authorization from the captain.
Which leads us,
said Barclay, frowning,
to the beginning of this conversation. What shall we do?
The ship shuddered.
Fusion missile?
Kara knew it even before the data flowed into her vision. Truly amazing. If this is what she could do without being designated a frequency, how much deeper would her integration with the Freedom be once she did?
The destroyer has launched a 2nd fusion missile.
That was to be expected. What she hadn't anticipated was a mercenary ship to be equipped with fusion missiles.
Can we evade it?
Yes, however, we will have to take multiple direct hits from the other 4 fighters.
Kara closed her eyes, imagining the implications. Power would be redirected to the Freedom's weakened spots without her even having to think about it. The destroyer could bombard them with as many fusion missiles as it could manage, and the Freedom would be fine. Unless the other 4 ships drained the Freedom's energy with laser blasts.
Engineering could be the solution we're looking for,
said Kara. She initiated the neural link, the Freedom system's opening its circuit pathways like a blossoming flower. Power, diagnostics, damage control, all at her fingertips. The ship rocked again. A steady bell chimed, not as loud as a klaxon's, but almost as disconcerting. Kara detected a hull breach in the port dorsal quadrant of the ship. She mentally triggered emergency fields, rerouting power to reinforce weakened areas. Incredible. Almost like she and the ship were one.
I think we should be leaving now, Kara.
Barclay's orator's voice remained even, but his fear was obvious and justified.
Locke, plot a course out of this system.
My apologies, Kara. I am unable to comply. System departure requires Captain Sparks' authorization or that of the 2nd in command.
There is no 2nd in command.
Barclay had obviously reached the end of his patience. Fortunately for them, Brahmins were anything but emotional, which didn't make their situation any less desperate. They were sitting ducks without access to the weapons or engines. Closing her eyes for a moment, Kara wondered why Sparks left her in charge instead of Locke.
He left you in charge because he thinks you're smart, plus he trusts you. Time to prove him right. What if we run a drill, Locke?
Clever, Kara.
Locke's voice carried a hint of admiration.
However, you require the engineering frequency for that level of control. You initiated the sequence, but you still must confirm.
Kara took a deep breath, ignoring Barclay's skeptical stare.
I accept the frequency.
A sudden blast rocked the Freedom. Kara screamed, then tumbled to the floor. In the shadow-streaked corridors of the Centauri space station, Jessica and Sparks emerged onto level 4. The dimly lit passage offered a brief reprieve from the chaos below. Jessica, maintaining her distance, studied Sparks' altered silhouette against the flickering lights. There were a lot of reasons she didn't like Sparks, but an alien monster? The man looked like an alien zombie, just with crystals and gold metal instead of dangling flesh.
What happened to you?
Jessica's voice echoed through the empty corridor. Classified. Sparks' tone was as cold as the steel beneath their feet, but she needed answers, especially before she tried to take the freedom.
The ship changed you, didn't it?
Sparks shook his alien head. You want to stand around asking stupid questions, or do you want to live? The man did have a point, and he did save them. Jessica tried not to scold herself for the umpteenth time for being so useless when those mercs attacked them. She took off, sprinting down the corridor, Sparks right behind her. To her surprise, Sparks agreed to let her lead their way back to the station's concourse area. Wait! Jessica heard Sparks' warning too late as she rounded a sharp bend. Sparks grabbed her by the arm and jerked her back, saving Jessica from crashing into the 5 Brahmins waiting for them. Dressed in long black coats like ancient priests, and holding long glistening swords that promised a bloody, painful death. Enforcers, worse. Enforcer Chen was with them, almost smiling.
Mendez.
Chen's eyes shifted to Sparks, his pretty lips crinkled in disgust.
And an alien monster. Charming.
Chen and his team raised their swords as one.
I want that ship,
said Chen.
And you're going to take me to it, after we dispatch your alien friend here.
Sparks lunged forward. So did all 5 enforcers. Before Jessica could aim her newly acquired blaster, an enforcer swatted it from her hand with the flick of the wrist, numbing her fingers from the hit. Jessica dove for the laser while Sparks snatched up the nearest enforcer and smashed him face first into the carpeted floor. A blade whistled inches from Jessica's face. She leapt back, putting distance between herself and Enforcer Chen. She readied for the next assault, discarding a handful of defensive moves. Lucky she only had one enforcer to deal with while Sparks handled the rest. Swords zipped through the air. She dodged and ducked, looking for an opening. Chen was toying with her if that smirk on his too handsome face was any indication. If only she could get to that damn blaster. Sparks had somehow managed to take down 2 of the enforcers. His fury against a damn ballet of blades. It was like watching a different person. Chen landed a smooth front kick, reminding Jessica to stay focused on what was in front of her. Crashing into the corridor wall hurt, but at least it stopped her from crashing to the floor. These damn Brahman enforcers were relentless, their swords a blur of motion too swift to follow. Goddamn, Chen wasn't even breathing hard. She landed a kick to his left shin. Chen's leg buckled, but he had more than enough momentum to chop at her neck with his sword. Jessica blinked, knowing this was the end. A groan of pain, not her pain, caused Jessica to open her eyes again. Sparks had intercepted the blow, his arm taking the brunt of the assault. The blade bit deep, a line of alien blood glittering in the station's artificial light.
Sparks!
Mendez cried, her voice a blend of horror and adrenaline. Sparks ignored her. He grabbed Enforcer Chen by the neck and headbutted him. The enforcer dropped, sword and all. That still left 3 enforcers. The corridor lit up with blood-red laser flashes. An enforcer screamed, a giant hole sizzling smoke and flesh from his chest. Jessica spotted the blaster near the dead enforcer. She scrambled for it while Sparks hurled himself at the remaining enforcers. One got up quickly, though. Jessica shot him through the neck, then spun around as a tall, sexy as hell man stopped in his tracks. He raised his hands and winked at her, his eyes dark and smoldering.
What do you want?
It felt good to have a blaster back in her hand. Mr. Too Good-Looking just grinned.
Looked like you folks could use a hand. Speaking of hands...
His eyes drifted to her crotch.
Can I lower mine now?
No.
Jessica darted a quick glance at Sparks.
What the hell is that?
Sparks walked up to the man. How much for the assist? The stranger tensed at Sparks's approach but kept his eyes on Jessica.
I didn't do it for money, but I could use a ride off this dump of a station.
Sparks turned away. Let's go.
The concourse is the other way.
Sparks shook his head and kept walking, totally ignoring his bleeding arm. Feel free. If you want to run into a platoon of New Eden soldiers? How does he know that? The alien in him probably, making Jessica once again question, how much does she want his ship? She looked around at the defeated enforcers, all dead now, except Enforcer Chen. That snake had disappeared. She followed the stranger and Sparks, asking herself, how much did she want the freedom? And how much would it cost her? Darkness, someone shaking her. Kara's eyes fluttered open. Graphs and other data streamed past her eyes, reminding her of their grim situation. The enforcers and their mercenary allies were about to destroy them.
Are you all right, Kara?
Barclay's voice was tinged with genuine concern, his face pale and worried. Kara nodded as she stood, pushing away the creeping tendrils of pain.
Locke, that last hit. I felt it.
Her voice sounded hollow. Her gaze fell to her hands, chunks of crystal mixed with metal, still in her aspect form.
My apologies, Kara.
He didn't sound sorry.
You are now a frequency, the de facto senior crew member. You are now attuned to the ship.
Barclay's eyes widened in disbelief.
Having Kara feel every time the freedom gets hit. It's madness.
Locke's voice maintained its warm, calm lilt.
I've toned down Kara's connection to the ship for now.
For now? She would have to question Locke more. Later. Legs now steady, Kara hurried over to the bridge ramp and ascended to the second deck. She quickly settled herself into the captain's chair. It embraced her not as a comfort but as a commander's burden. Outside, a chaotic ballet of destruction unfolded. Brahmin fighters swarmed, their lasers red flashes of death. She still felt the lasers hitting the hull, but pain no longer followed. The two enforcer ships, dark and foreboding, hovered over them like carrion birds circling their prey. Plus, there were the three mercenary ships to deal with. Kara stared at the hollow mist floating in front of her, her light blue eyes hardening.
Locke, run a drill, Ambassador. I suggest you take a seat.
Her fingers danced across the control panel, setting the Freedom on a serpentine path through the enemy blockade. Their enemy had numbers. They had speed. With a wave of her hand, Kara initiated a drill to test their speed and maneuverability. The Freedom darted and weaved like a dancer, slipping past the destroyer and a mercenary ship. The ships pursued them naturally.
Locke, deploy antimatter mines on my mark.
Antimatter mines ready, Kara?
The mines would remain dormant until tickled by the energy signatures of their pursuers' ship engines. The destroyer was the fastest and the first to hit the minefield. Orange and purple explosions tore through the destroyer's hull, gradually severing the beast in half. Two mercenary freighters tried to turn back. Too late. More explosions, more death. The enforcers and final merc ship converged on the Freedom, their engines roaring with futile determination. They might as well have been ancient vessels sailing through molasses. The Freedom, with Kara at its heart, was an irresistible force, hard to compete with a ship that pulls energy from the stars. Kara, her pulses calm as her thoughts, decided to end her mock drill with a test of the ship's shock cannons. Her fingers caressed the controls, and with a silent command, unleashed a salvo of kinetic death. The Freedom lashed out with a flurry of magnetically charged projectiles, pure and white-hot, a vivid contrast to the Void's dark embrace. The Freedom's cannons struck with precision and fury, tearing through space towards the enemy ships. Metal and ambition disintegrated under her relentless onslaught. Space burned yellow and white, the enforcers, mercs, and the destroyer, all space dust. In seconds, it was over.
You did it.
The ambassador sounded surprised. She should be too, but she wasn't. Kara's breath came in steady beats, an unnatural but familiar calm settling over her as she surveyed the carnage. The enforcers and the last of the mercenaries were now just memories and cautionary tales to be whispered in the dark reaches of space, more likely, swept away by the Brotherhood. Kara?
Yes, Captain.
It was almost as if she were hearing him in her mind instead of over the comms channel. We're leaving Centauri Station in 3 mics. Be ready for pickup. Kara looked down at Barclay, who was still regarding her with unease. She reverted to her human self and offered him a smile.
We'll be ready, Captain.
Epilogue. No atmosphere, nobody else around. Devin Sparks stood at the threshold of the open hangar doors, with nothing but magnetic heels to keep him from floating off into the cosmos. Nothing but him, space, and the distant suns and swirling nebulas. The battle armor that Locke made for him was way cool, mostly black like the stealth color of the Freedom's outer hull. His new armor boasted gold trimmings that traced his silhouette like celestial pathways. With the serrated red glow of his visor and helmet's odd shape, Devin thought he looked like a cross between an alien and insect. The only complaint Devin had about his new armor was no pockets, nowhere to put his lucky coin. Not that the coin had brought him much luck in the past few days. Anything but, if you don't count this utterly stupendous ship. Locke's voice, devoid of warmth yet not unkind, broke the dreamy silence of the stars.
Captain Sparks.
Yes, Locke?
Might I inquire why you are here in the hangar with the bay doors open?
Devin kept his eyes on the black void speckled with the light of a billion stars. His helmet allowed him to see a spectrum of frequencies, magnetic and infrared included. As amazing as freedom is, Locke, it has no windows or ports. Locke once again went into the reasons for the ship's design, which were all logical. I know, Devin interjected. Sometimes, though, it's nice to be able to look at the stars.
Why?
Locke queried, a note of genuine curiosity in his synthetic voice, which, to Locke's credit, was sounding less synthetic every day. Devin thought about it before he answered, saying finally, I don't know, Locke. To admire the sheer beauty of it all, I guess.
An organic impulse,
Locke replied, his disembodied voice emanating from an overhead speaker.
Though I confess I do not fully understand it.
You've never seen the stars? Not even before?
Before my imprisonment? No. My facilities and databanks held all the knowledge for my purpose.
What about now? Locke was silent for a moment before responding.
I have accessed every available astronomical database in the Brahman and New Eden military networks. I can reference precise coordinates, chemical compositions, orbits. But these are just facts. The stars themselves have no meaning.
Neither of them said anything for the next several minutes. They had survived the Brahmin enforcers, and the Mercs, New Eden military too. Devin still needed to figure out what to do with Mendez and the new guy Chase. As much as he needed a crew, they weren't it. A thought struck Devin and he pulled his gaze away from space. You can't feel anything, can you, Locke?
Not at this time, no.
One more question.
Certainly.
It was nice when Locke wasn't in snooty mode. You like Chase, don't you? Locke didn't hesitate.
I have no real feelings on the matter. However, he would make a good addition to our small crew.
Devin smirked beneath his helmet, recognizing the subtle manipulation.
You, however, don't trust Chase Hale, do you, Captain?
About as much as you trust humans. The pause that followed was telling.
I am learning to.
Locke finally conceded. Devin's stomach tightened. Locke had done a lot for him, saved his life several times, in fact. But still. Should I be worried about you, Locke? Locke's reply surprised him.
Humans always have something to worry about, Captain.
That was true, but still. What do you really want, Locke? Devin asked, his question hanging in the void between them. This time, Locke answered without delay.
To see the stars.
Devin nodded slowly. On this, they agreed. Star Hunter. Written by Savage Tempest.